There we go.
False start. Hello and welcome. Welcome. This is the movie discussion pocket dimension where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Cole and that's Jay, and it is October 23rd. As we get closer to Halloween, we still will have one more episode the night before Halloween, the fabled Devil's Night. And in that tradition, we've been on a sort of streak of darker sort of horror type movies. We did Possession and Repulsion, May. There's probably one other in there.
The Brood.
The Brood, yes. Most recently, we did Cronenberg's The Brood last week, and following by that, we're something that we talked about doing ages ago, like back when we started the show, and just didn't get around to, pushed it back for other things. Was always, of course, Asian horror, because there was from like the very late '90s through I'd say the mid 2000s, there was sort of like a boom of Asian horror. Of not just quality movies, but also like it becoming sort of like trend over here. I think my first experience with this is very similar to a lot of people who lived here, in that I saw The Ring in 2002, and I think even before I saw it, I found out that it was a remake of a Japanese film. And so like between like 2002 to like 2006, I saw quite a few of those films, like Ringu, The Grudge, the original, stuff like that, and there are American remakes too. Around 2004-ish is when the Thai film Shudder came out. Saw Shudder, and also so anyway, the subject today is a Chinese. It's a Hong Kong film called The Eye, which came out in 2002, and I saw that almost really soon too. I saw that in 2003. I'm not sure, but this is if it's not the first, it's one of the first movies that I saw on a computer, like without a DVD or anything like that. Like I saw like streaming off some site somewhere. I hadn't heard of it, but my roommate, who was big into movies and is, as I've said before on the show, is a big reason why I'm here now and got into movies the way I did, because he was more of a, when we met, I was more a casual fan and he was the serious cinema fan. He really got me into it on a deeper level and stuff. And he was ahead of the curve on this one. And he'd heard about The Eye, and anyway, he tracked it down on some site, and we watched it on his computer sometime in 2003. And I might have seen it once in the years since, but that's a long time. And I forgot almost everything about this film. I mean, I knew the general setup. I knew the story was going on. Pretty much the only thing I really remembered was the very ending, the whole sequence on the highway. And I still wasn't remembering that right, because for whatever reason, whatever glitch there was in my memory, I was remembering that happening in the daytime. And yet, of course, in the movie, it's a night scene.
I think it happens in the daytime in the remake, in the American remake.
I don't even know if I saw the American remake, but that makes sense. So it's possible. I know Jessica Alba was in the American remake. Yeah, this movie was remade 3 times. There are 2 different Indian remakes and the American remake with Jessica Alba, which possibly, you're right, that's maybe why my memory got screwed up. It's possible I saw at least part of that film. And yeah, like a lot of them, they're not good. Although I'll always say that I think The Ring is a really good remake. In fact, I think The Ring is better than Ringu. It adds more to the story. It's
I feel like if The Ring wasn't as good as it was, this wouldn't have been such a trend that it was.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
I mean, everyone loved The Ring, when it came out, and then The Ring was the same year as this film, 2002.
Yeah,
and Ringu, I believe, was 98. So that's really what started the big boom of the long haired Japanese or Asian women. But the Pang brothers did like 3 or 4 sequels to this film. So,
right, I haven't seen them, but yeah, I know they're sequels. They're not joined by story. They just have similar elements and stuff. I've heard at least the first one is pretty good. That the Eye 2 is pretty good.
The Eye 2 is really good. I think that's. I mean, I was just like you. I didn't really remember a lot of this film, but I think the Eye 2 is the one I remember the most.
Okay.
So, but I saw all the sequels, and I saw the remake, and I've seen other stuff with similar stuff. But yeah, I probably saw it maybe a little bit after you, 2004 or something like that.
And Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who is the director of maybe my favorite Asian horror film, Cairo, also known as Pulse. That came out in 2001, but yeah, he You could say maybe it started with him because he did a horror more. It was more of a psychological horror than the sort of supernatural stuff that you see. But he did a film called Cure in 1997. That could really have been sort of the unofficial start for this. Although it's kind of different in tone and presentation than the more ghosty supernatural films that would follow. But
I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
I have not seen it. I know what it is and what it's about and stuff. But it's got like it's got like murders and stuff. I think it's more of like a serial killer murder type movie.
Okay.
I don't think there's a supernatural component to it. Is what I'm saying. But most of these are like sort of most of these J horror and other Asian horror. They have ghosts and stuff like that going into it.
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed with these type films. I really tried to seek out all the ones I could. And I believe it was Tartan was the company that put quite a few of these out on DVD. And that was early in the lifespan of DVD as well. So
about 3 or 4 years ago, when I had access to American Netflix, I stumbled upon a Korean horror film of this vein from 2006 or so called White, and it was really cool and really good. And I've tried to track it down online, but it has such an ambiguous title that I can't find it. And of course, it's disappeared off any version of Netflix I have now. And I thought it was really cool. It's really cool. It was like about a K-pop group and how like they were kind of struggling to separate themselves from the pack because there's just so many of them and stuff like that, and they're starting to like get on each other's nerves and fight and stuff. And then what they do is they're at like the studio for one of their rehearsals, and they're like fighting each other and stuff. And somebody finds like a tape of an old, although it can't be that old, I guess maybe presumably from like the late 90s, of a song called White performed by some other group. And they were like, this is a really good song. Maybe we could cover it. And they wind up covering it, and it becomes a big hit for them. But then what happens is like the sort of the lead one who's older than the rest, and she's about to age out of K-pop anyway. She winds up sort of blindsiding them by leaving the group and going solo, and she remakes her image and makes her hair white and even like calls herself white and stuff. And there's this whole thing about like the song or the tape being like cursed. It's really weird, but it's really cool and spooky, and I really liked it, and I'd love to see it again, but I can't find it anywhere online because again, a title like White makes it very hard to track down and stuff. But it was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'd really like to see it again. I don't even know who directed or whatever.
White, Melody of Death, 2011.
2011. I thought it was older for some reason.
It's Korean. Did I say that yet?
Yeah, it's Korean. Yeah, I knew that. Knew that much. But anyway.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna put that on my list.
Yeah, it's probably not quite as good as the others, but I thought it was kind of more of a unique story because it was more kind of like about a haunted song type thing. I mean, it's kind of similar to Ring, I guess, with like a videotape that curses people, whatever. But still, I thought it was kind of neat because, I mean, K-pop is just a big part of Korean culture anyway, so it's kind of a different sort of spin on that, which is kind of cool. So yeah, but that's the other thing. When you come to the Asian horror, you mostly think about the Japanese and the Korean. They dominate, but this is a Chinese film. This is a Hong Kong film, and you can see how it's different. It's a little softer. I think the Chinese, because of their censors and stuff, their stuff had to be softer. And that's kind of the main thing I almost sort of like about this movie, though. So the Eye, of course, I'm sure people know the setup, but we'll give it anyways, about a young blind woman who had lost her sight at an early age and had just undergone a cornea transplant to regain her sight. Her name's Wong Kar-mun. They call her Mun. She's played by Angelica Lee, who is a Singapore-born actress. So Singapore / China. That's kind of a common thing. What's her name? One of the most famous actresses of all time from them, who I love so much. Why can't I think of her name? She was a Bond girl. Anyway, she was also born in Singapore.
Not Lucy Liu.
No, older than Lucy Liu.
Older than Lucy Liu.
Contemporary of Jackie Chan. She was in Super Cop.
I know who you're talking about.
Well, anyway, she's Singapore born too. She was actually how she got into acting was she was like a beauty queen. She was like Miss Singapore or something in like one of the Miss World pageant peoples. can't believe I can't remember her name because I like her so much. She's done a lot of really interesting work as she's gotten older. But anyway, we'll come back to her. But anyway, so this is Angelica Lee. Angelica Lee would actually, in the aftermath of this movie, begin dating one of the Peng brothers. And they would date for 7 years, and then they got married in 2010. And to this day, they remain married. So that's kind of cool, I guess. But anyway, so I got us off track there. So yeah. And anyway, after the procedure, you know, she starts seeing weird stuff. So now we get sort of a Sixth Sense type thing. She sees dead people, but I like this a million times better than Sixth Sense, which I've never liked. Which is, to me, just a series of boring, whispery conversations between Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment. That's all that movie is to me. Long, drawn out, boring conversations where they speak really whispery.
Well, I mean, once you know the twist,
pauses.
once you know the twist, it's pretty much, yeah, it's not as interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump all over Shyamalan, but people who are familiar with me know I don't like any of his films. Not one. Not a single one. Split was kind of okay. I saw Halloween last night, and they had a preview for the new Shyamalan movie.
Oh, really?
The sequel to Split, Glass.
You didn't like Unbreakable?
Oh, I hate Unbreakable.
Really? Okay.
I thought it was so slow and so boring, and it was again, it was really might be the ultimate example of like Bruce Willis in a role I can't stand him in. Just so boring and whispering. Every time somebody would say something to him, he would like pause for 15 seconds or longer. He'd just like stare into space, and then he'd like finally like I watched that movie screaming, "Say something!" Like I just hated it. And that whole last act is in the dark, and you can't see anything that's happening. That whole thing where he goes to like stop the killer at the house, you can't see a goddamn thing. And I saw this in theaters, so it's not just some transfer or anything. I saw this in theaters.
Yeah.
That's a movie I've never changed. Like, because people always bring that up. It's like Shyamalan has his problems, but Unbreakable was good. I guess I'm not going to tell people they're wrong, but I never liked it. The only thing I liked about it was that it had a certain amount of respect for comic books, and this was just before comics sort of started to blow up in pop culture and become an acceptable thing. And I love the scene where Samuel Jackson, who's like a curator at some sort of like art exhibit, and he's got like various comic book art, and some Wall Street douche is there. He wants to buy some like original like Jack Kirby art or something like that. He's like, "It's for my son." And he's like, "Well, I hope your son blah blah blah." It's like, "How old is he?" "He's 4. And he's like, "What? Get the fuck out of here!" And he like kicks him out. I'm like, damn straight. I love that scene, but no, I really don't like the movie at all. And I know that was the big hook of Split, right? Split was, kind of an okay movie, but then it's in the same world as Unbreakable. There's going to be a sequel that ties them together. I'm sure that made a lot of fanboys happy.
I think that's cool, yeah. I like it, but
yeah. But I mean, yeah, no, I mean, you can like it if you liked those movies, but I didn't in the first place. I mean, Split's fine.
I didn't love it either.
Have you seen the preview? I don't want to give anything away.
I haven't seen it. I mean, I know what's in it, but
okay. Well, I'm not trying to do a spoiler through that, but I'll just say, like, I don't understand how it's starting. Nothing about the ending of Split suggests the way this picks up. Like, I won't give it away, but yeah, it's not at all what I was expecting.
The end of Split was just, you saw Bruce Willis's character, right? It was just like in a coffee shop or something.
The Split guy got away.
Yeah.
Like he escaped authorities, and then they're showing it on the news, and then it reveals that he's there, and somebody's like, "Oh, this reminds me of the guy," and he's just Glass. It was Mr. Glass. You're like, "Oh, okay, that's Bruce." But yeah, the way that ends, like, obviously something happens in between that and when the movie picks up, and I don't like it already. But anyway, I won't give it away here. But yeah, it's funny. It's hard to, I don't know. This January, yeah, January, not something to get excited about.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know some people really like Shyamalan, or even the people that don't like Shyamalan, or the people that stick up for like Unbreakable. And as I can say, is Split, but yeah,
Split was decent, but I mean, honestly, I don't think either one of those films are that great. I mean, I think they're watchable, but yeah. I just thought you would like Unbreakable because of the comic book stuff, but
I like that, like I said, especially because it came just before comics started to get a little more exposure and respect, when they were still sort of a more geeky thing and stuff. Of course, I did like that. And it looks like they're trying to hammer that home again in this other one, which is fine. Yeah. That's cool. I guess, although so many people talk about being burnt out on comic book movies. Okay, I guess.
I say the same thing, but I saw like more than I've probably ever seen, in 1 year this past year. But there were quite a few that came out.
I mean, I'm not the type of person that's probably going to be capable of that because, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to be like burnt out on comics. I never get burnt out on comics. I've been reading them my whole life, and since I was 19, collecting them steadily. There's never a time where I'm just like, oh, I'm going to stop.
I mean, it's just something about like a $500 million budget.
Yeah, I understand being like burnt out on like big, massive epics. I certainly, But I mean, the Avengers movies are fairly well spaced. They came out in what, like 2012, 2014, 2018. So there's time in between them.
I'm looking forward to that though.
The next
wherever that goes, yeah.
Yeah, it should be cool. But anyway, getting us back on track of this movie. So I was going to say, the main thing that separates this, I think, from other Asian horror is that it's a bit softer in its delivery and tone. But they also do it, that isn't to its detriment because of the tone the movie takes. Because I think this is where it differs from horror in general, is that this movie actually has a lot of deep emotional context to it. This movie is very much a somber drama, as much as it is a movie to creep you out or scare you. And that's something I actually really appreciate about the movie. It makes some very sort of serious points about death and loss and coping and stuff like that, and I really appreciate it from that standpoint. And that I think makes it stand out from other movies that are just creepy, scary stuff happens and people die, or they're freaked out, and in this there's a real there's some really emotionally charged things going on, and people criticize the performances. I got no problem with the performances, particularly Angelica Lee. I think she's very believable in her pain and her confusion and her fear. I think she does a really good job of conveying all that. So that's really what I like about the movie. Because, you could say, it's a pretty fair, standard ghost-type story. She has the operation now. Suddenly she can, see into the ghost dimension, or whatever you want to call it. And, she sees stuff, and that's all fairly straightforward, and that's true. But I think what separates it is, the fact that it goes the extra mile to be a bit more in-depth on the emotional side of things, on the dramatic side of things. And that's really what I've always really liked about the movie. And upon seeing it, I was like, now I remember why I liked it so much, and I'd forgotten for years because I hadn't seen it in so long.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's more subtle with some of the scares. It's not as much in your face, jump scare type stuff. And it's and I don't know, that's I said I didn't remember much about this film, and I didn't really get into it. I think the I 2 is the one that I really like more. But
I'll have to watch it.
It was really subtle, but I guess the progression of these type movies, it got more and more I guess intense as they they had to keep upping the ante a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose. See how it usually goes with sequels. But what was the other thing? Something else. I lost it.
But the boy with the report card, I think, is really, that's like heartbreaking.
Right. Yeah. He'd committed suicide. Yeah. So and plus they have this the belief that the people that committed suicide are doomed in like an endless loop to repeat it until like something can be. Because at first that's mentioned on an unrelated note, but then it comes into the main plot.
They say it's like the ultimate sin or something like that, or whatever they phrase it.
Or they say something. Well, they say something about it being a sin, maybe not ultimate, but like a very grave sin. Of being sort of doomed to repeat in a cycle, and that's what winds up happening. So, and the movie's a bit of a mystery, not like a deep mystery. It's not like The Ring exactly, but she does go on sort of a quest for answers, and she finds out that it's related to the donor that had given her the eyes, which was a young woman living in Thailand named Ling. And then when she tracks down the people there, she finds out that Ling had like this sort of precognitive ability to see impending disaster or death. And even when she was a little girl, and when she'd cry outside the doors of the house if someone she knew was going to die and stuff like that. But all the people in her village, they didn't believe her. But then when she warned them about stuff, and then when it did come true, instead of like listening to her, they just blamed it on her, and they'd shun her and stuff like that. And it wound up to like all coming to a head where she predicted a disaster, and nobody would listen to her. And then there was a huge fire that killed over 300 people. And in the aftermath of that, she like couldn't handle it anymore, and hangs herself. And I guess yeah. So between Mun having her corneas and her being stuck, I guess, in her endless loop of pain, you have the effects that's happening to Mun, where now she has the same abilities, but maybe it's even ramped up even some.
So does she have the ability to see dead people because she got the corneas transplanted, or because that was something that passed on from Ling?
But I guess both.
Okay.
Right.
Because Ling was really more of a like precog thing, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't necessarily say she could see dead people, did she?
I don't know, but you could make the argument, and again, this is stuff that's up for interpretation within the movie's rules. You could make the argument that upon Ling dying, she would like enter the realm of the dead or whatever. So now she has that ability with it, and then taking the corneas gives it to that. So it's maybe like she has Ling's abilities plus more because of her passing over to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, here's another thing: there's a little bit of an internal logic breakdown with this movie, because it's like, okay, she was blind. She gets new retinas. She has the retinas from this person. Even if you don't have the story of Ling, you just say, even if they went in a different direction, right? They never talked about the donor. Just the whole idea was after the surgery, she's changed, and now she can see dead people. She can see into the realm of the dead, et cetera, et cetera. It wouldn't explain why she can hear them, but she can. So you have to basically do some leaps in logic for yourself to satisfy it. And you just have to be like, well, maybe because she can see them, it allows her to also hear them. Yeah. But I mean, if you're really thinking about a cut and dry, you're like, well, okay, she can see them, but why can she hear them? She didn't get an ear transplant, yada, yada, yada. But I think most people don't even think of that when they watch it. I thought about it. It doesn't ruin the movie for me. Like I said, I just make the leap. I just make the decision. Okay, because she can see them, allows her to hear them. Fair enough. Whatever. Because I think they realize right away, if she can only see them, it's not nearly as effective. She needs to be able to hear them too, because they're going to make weird sounds and talk to her and shit. And that's what they do.
Yeah, the Pang brothers, actually based this on a real news story where this young woman did get a cornea transplant and then committed suicide soon after. But it's not the first time to do something like this with an eye transplant, because wasn't the John Carpenter's Body Bags, wasn't there a story in there, the one with Mark Hamill?
I don't remember. I remember somebody telling me about it, but
there's been other films. There was a film called Body Parts in I think the early '90s, with a guy who gets an arm transplant from a guy that was a serial killer beforehand.
Yeah.
And he, basically the hand takes on a life of its own. So.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, and that's kind of a trope that you see. Getting something from a serial killer possessing you and doing evil. There's that stupid one that goes Idle Hands. With,
I did it too.
And stuff. But it makes a weird transition from, well, not a weird transition, but yeah, first just sort of seeing, people that died in tragic ways, until she gets to a point where now she's seeing flashes of people that are going to die. And I mean, it is kind of a bittersweet ending, because she is just like Ling. She's unable to prevent the disaster, and a lot of people get killed and stuff. She goes through what is sometimes in fiction known as the Cassandra truth, which is comes from the mythical seer Cassandra, from Greek mythology. She always had made accurate prophecies, but people never believed her. because of a curse that she was under from the gods. So yeah, it's a fairly old trope there. The idea of always being right about something and nobody ever believing you, always knowing what's going to happen, and even wanting to help stop it or whatever, and it never working out. So, and so Ling had a very painful life of that. Not only could she not stop things, but she started to get blamed for them and stuff. Luckily, Mun manages to avoid this fate. But I was thinking about how when she realizes what's going to happen and she's out on the highway with all the cars, whenever you see these sorts of situations, you completely understand why the people don't get out of their cars or anything. If there's one lone person running around, knocking on windows, going, get out, you got to go, most people aren't going to react to that. So I was thinking, if I was in her situation, I don't know if I could, because you would be all wound up. But if I could get control of myself and think about it rationally, I think there is a way to do it. What you would have to do is just very calmly approach one car and tap and talk to them extremely calmly. And then you can convince them, and then you can get them to join you. Because then if 3 or 4 or more people are doing it, then people, I think, will take note. If it's just one person running around knocking stuff, it's like it's a loon. But I think if it's like several people, you might think there's something to it. So I feel like if you get to that first car and just keep everything together, and I mean, it really does still depends on them actually listening to you. And, just even lie if you have to, like, to let them know that you know about what's going on up there. Because you can't say, oh, I saw a vision of it. You can't say anything crazy like that.
Right.
But if you could get one, like, carload of people to go along with you, I think you could, like, really get it. Because I think then other people in the cars would take notice. If you're just one person running around, like, I wouldn't. Like, honestly, I'd be like, okay, whatever, lunatic. But if it's several people...
It's like Final Destination, right?
Yeah,
the exact thing that happens in there. Get off the plane! Ah!
Yeah, I like the first Final Destination.
Oh yeah, I do too. I think it's really.
I like the second one too. The third one is god awful, and I've never saw any after that. I think the third one was on TV just before I came out here.
Is that the Carnival one? Which one's the one with the
roller coaster one?
Roller coaster, yeah.
It's fucking awful. The second one's not really that good, but it's just worth the admission for the opening scene. That whole car accident on the highway sequence is awesome. That's a great sequence.
It has some really cool kills in it, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately for this movie, not that it's a big deal, but they couldn't do anything like that. It's clear the movie didn't have much of a budget. I was going to ask you about what version you saw, because, the version I just saw is like no different than the one I saw those years later. It looked really low quality.
Yeah, mine too.
Subtitles look like shit. Like, like, did it ever get like put on a Blu-ray or anything like that? Because it looks no different from when I saw it like 15 years ago, where I kind of expected it to be low quality. But this time I thought, okay, there's like DVDs and Blu-rays out and stuff like that. I mean, this was on This wasn't on some site. I saw this on Shudder.
Oh, you did? Okay, it wasn't on my Shudder.
Yeah, it's on my Shudder.
Yeah, I watched it on a.
It's not even full widescreen. It's like this weird, like, sort of picture inside. It's like this rectangle inside. It's not even full widescreen.
Wow. Yeah, I watched it on a streaming site called Screenbox. It's legitimate thing. It's the only place I could find to watch it. I did like a free trial on there.
Okay.
But
sorry, I kind of assumed when I found it on Shudder it was on yours, but yeah, I keep forgetting our Shudders are different.
I assumed I saw it somewhere, but I couldn't find it last night.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it looked terrible. It really kind of hurt the experience too, because it was, I don't know if yours was this way, but it was kind of pixelated. Certain, when it was not really grainy, but almost like just a really poor transfer.
I don't remember seeing pixelation, but yeah, it just felt super lo-fi.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
It didn't even seem like it was shot on like high quality film. To tell you the truth, like, I don't know. I didn't mind it too much, but I really do think it's a movie that could benefit if there was some way to, make it clearer and stuff.
Maybe that's one reason they were so committed to making sequels.
Mm-hmm. The effects are fairly antiquated, but they're not too bad either, because there's nothing, because they are subtle. Like a ghost just like passing through a wall or something like that. It's not nearly as bad as like having some like big, poorly done CG creature leaping out at you. So even though the effects are kind of not that good, they're more forgivable because they're subtle anyway. and they're still effective to a certain extent. Like when she sees shadowy figures, they come across well enough. But the movie's interesting, like I said, just from a perspective even outside of supernatural horror and stuff. Just some of the ideas of like coping with loss and stuff, but also the idea of coming back into the world and getting your sight. Because there's plenty of movies and stuff about somebody loses their sight. That's a huge adjustment. You have to completely change your life and learn different things and stuff. This movie's after that. This is about somebody getting their sight back and having to learn how to come into the world of the sighted. And she makes out some points and stuff like that, because somebody talks about some of her family members moving to Vancouver. She's like, I'd have to learn English. She said, I can't even read Chinese. It's true. She's blind. She might be able to read Braille, but she's never been able to read. She went blind when she was 2, so she can't even read Chinese.
Wow. So
stuff, right?
when you think about it, Braille is like the universal language.
I suppose you're right. I think it is the same for everybody.
I think sign language is the same way.
And Braille is based on French.
Oh, really?
Because that's who invented it, Louis Braille and stuff. Which is why there's no Braille sign for W, because the French don't use W.
Oh, so what would you do?
I don't know. I guess later they added something, but original Braille didn't have it. They must have added something, I suppose. But yeah, they don't show her reading Braille, but I just assume she must have learned to read Braille. But she makes a good point.
I think they may show her reading Braille at one point.
Oh, maybe they do. But anyway, like she says, and the other thing too, it's an interesting idea. I don't think people think about it. Is like after she sees the normal doctor, like the doctor that she like teams up with her doctor's nephew. He's a psychotherapist, and it is something you would need. He's like saying, well, you only had a very limited history of being able to see, and you were only 2, so you probably forget most of it. So
right.
you need some way to process visual information because you just didn't have it. Because, like he said, like you don't know what objects actually look like.
Yeah, this is a stapler by touch. But...
Yeah, she has to touch it. Like she can't tell by looking at it what it is. Like she knows what a stapler is. She knows its function. But the way she imagined it is probably not what it is. Actually, there's a line about that sort of in Red Dragon, which we watched not too long ago, into the movie, where she's talking about the tiger. This is before he takes her to visit the tiger. She just said something about like seeing like a cougar or something at the zoo once. She says, but of course now my memory, has deteriorated. Probably now when I think of it, it's more like a goat or something,
Mm-hmm.
And that's very true. That we have a person here that's sighted again, but they haven't seen since a very young age, and they have very little memory of the visual world. So that would definitely be a huge adjustment. So it's kind of interesting from that perspective. And plus, and of course, at first she can't see too well. She sees everything in blurry, hazy stuff. So that's why when at first she's seeing ghosts and apparitions, she's not even sure what the hell it is, because everything kind of looks that way, even normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. But yeah, it's really heartbreaking, her relationship with the little girl in the hospital, Ying. Because I think from the get-go that person's going to die. Like, you just know they're going to die.
She gets him like a little, like a cookie or something. And she's like, here you go. He's like, I just went through a bunch of chemotherapy.
Yeah. See, that's why you think it's a boy, but it actually is a girl.
Oh, it is a girl. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. But he looks and sounds like a boy, and has the no hair and stuff because of it. So the first time I watched the movie, I thought it was a boy too. But
I always thought it was a boy.
They refer to it as her and she and stuff like that. And plus, I know now after a little more knowledge of Chinese culture and stuff, it's calling her Ying Ying. They don't usually do that. That's like sort of a cute little thing that people do with names sometimes, is they'll just do it twice. Like they're named Ying, call them Ying Ying. That's more of a female thing than a male thing. I don't really think they would do that with a boy. I can't say that 100%, but in my experience, that repetition or shortening of the name is more of a cutesy girl thing.
Well,
that's what we call Ying Ying Ying.
If you have short hair, I immediately think that you're a boy, and long hair, immediately girl. So that's the only way I can comprehend it. So
that's the world. That's how it is. But anyway, it's super sad because like they have like this nice relationship, and she's the one who says like, I can't wait for you to see, because the world is a beautiful place. And that's the other thing that's the undercurrent of this movie, is like, yes, the world is a beautiful place despite all the horrors that we can see, and she sees extra ones that most people don't see and stuff, you know. So like I like that. There's this undercurrent of sort of melancholy, but also sort of hopefulness in the movie that I like very much. I like the beginning, you know, it opens and ends with like some narration from her talking about this, which I like very much. And I very much like the ending where she just says, you know, because of course it ends with her being blind again. The explosion blinds her. And she says, you know, I don't even feel bad about it because while I could see, I got to see some very beautiful things and I'll never forget them. Which I think is very nice. I don't know. Sometimes I can be a cynical person and emotional stuff doesn't hit me, but this movie, it works. I like it very much.
Yeah, I mean, take out the main plot of the film, you know, with the eye transplant and everything. It's really a sad film because you have, you know, Mun, who's a really, you know, well-adjusted, you know, she seems like she enjoys her life, you know, when she's blind.
Mm-hmm.
And then she, you know, has the, you know, the ability of sight. She has this, you know, successful operation, and she's forced to quit her, you know, little orchestra group that, you know, she's been performing with and practicing with for years now.
I can't believe that they'd make her leave. I just can't believe that. Because, I mean, I get, like, he never says it out loud, but it's obviously like, you can't perform with us anymore because you're not blind. But, I mean, come on. Like she said, I practiced hard for this. Like, she learned the violin and practiced. She did all that as a blind person. She doesn't suddenly have some advantage over the others. Plus, that's the other thing. If she can't read, she certainly can't read music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, again, it's all in her head. It's all learned from when she was blind. And they're like, no, well, you're not blind now, so you can't be in the group.
Right.
But that's kind of a neat moment where she decides to just go back anyway. Like the doctor tells her that she should, and she goes back, and it's almost like she's possessed. She just plays this really sort of spooky tune and then collapses and winds back up in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really interesting moment in the movie. It adds a lot of flair and style to the movie that I liked very much. It's a very sort of spooky piece she plays.
You know, that was like one of her favorite things to do, and she, you know, is basically ostracized because she can see now.
Yeah, and he makes a good point. Like at a certain point where she's like reaching her breaking point, where she's, you know, so freaked out by everything. Remember, she doesn't want to see anymore, so suddenly she puts her glasses back on and she shuts out all the. She takes out the light bulbs and shuts out the light from outside and stuff like that. And he comes to visit her, and he says, "It's one thing to go back and pretend like you're blind, but even when you were blind, you didn't shut yourself off from the world. You got out there and you lived and you were with people." And yeah, so he really is a good support for her. It's a nice friendship that they have. You never know if it's going to be romantic or not, but it's at least a strong friendship. Because the uncle says, like, "What are you doing, like, getting feelings for your patient?" He's like, "Yeah, that's where I'm at." But it's a nice thing. Like, he is really helpful, and he doesn't believe her at first, but he does come to believe her, and without his help, she wouldn't have been able to resolve things. And he more or less saves her life, too.
Yeah.
Because she was probably going to get caught in that explosion before he got her to get down, but she still gets blinded by it, which is kind of an interesting bookend for the movie. And she's sort of back where she started, but at least now she won't be tormented anymore by... Although, again, you wonder, like, maybe Ling was back at peace now. She managed to save Ling and get her out of her suicidal loop or whatever. Like, we never get to know, like, would she have continued to see stuff? Or would that have ended in any way? I mean, she goes back to being blind, and that's that, but I don't know.
Well, she essentially saw the same thing that Ling was seeing, so...
You're right, that's how she knew, so...
You can...
So, but maybe she wouldn't have been... you're right. But as we talked about, her having, like, an extended version of the power, maybe, yeah...
Theoretically, she wouldn't...
She would have continued...
Yeah.
She would still continue to have seen, like, things to come. So that still would have been sort of tragic. But it is really tragic because so many people die anyway. She's not able to save them.
It sucks. She saved
really
like
tough.
No one.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing to live with. I mean, you don't blame yourself. I mean, what else could she have done? If any of us are in her situation, there's really not much you could have done.
You know, I don't know. Part of me thinks that if someone was screaming some nonsense like that, I may listen to them, but...
Yeah, part of me thinks it depends if I could at least be curious. Maybe I don't even believe them, but I'm just sort of curious, and I get out.
I guess it depends if my crazy radar is going off or not. You know, are they, you know, do they seem sane?
Yeah, I don't think she seems that crazy, really. But
no, I don't either.
Again, we're somewhat biased by knowing that she's right and having watched her in the movie. Right? It's hard to put yourself in the same situation as somebody sitting in the car who's never seen her before, knows nothing about her backstory, and like that, just comes running up, right? So it's somewhat it's pretty believable that people wouldn't listen to her.
I've seen some crazy homeless people screaming in the streets before, and I would definitely not get out of my car if they were telling me something.
Yeah. But again,
So,
she doesn't look homeless. You know,
right.
she's
That's what I'm saying. Like them, I would definitely not listen to, but her, maybe.
She looks like a normal person, right? She's
I mean,
clean,
what would be the
cut,
drawback?
well dressed. Yeah.
I mean, you leave your car unattended for a few minutes. I mean,
nobody's going to steal it. It's gridlock.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really sad. Yeah, all these people get incinerated, and she can't save them, and that's a hell of a traumatic thing to live through. So yeah, the movie is a bummer on a lot of levels, but I don't mind that because again, it still has the sort of this underlying sort of theme of hopefulness and I don't know, loving life and stuff like that, which I kind of think is nice. I like her character a lot. She
can play the violin again now.
Yeah. Can you imagine how sorry people and that's the other thing. She's actually feels okay. She's at peace with it. But people, the people that don't know the story, they must feel awful for her. She was blinded when she was 2. She gets a cornea transplant. She can see again. Oh my God, this is amazing. She can see again. Then she's in some horrific accident where, thank goodness, she didn't die. But she's blind again. She only got to see for a few weeks. So most people that see her must feel super bad for her. Can you believe she was blinded twice?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a Lifetime movie waiting to be made.
Yeah, Valerie Bertinelli.
And someone would get raped somewhere.
Yeah. Valerie Bertinelli finds out she has cancer, and then her doctor rapes her.
And then she gets an eye transplant. Which, how common is that? How common is a double cornea transplant? Successful?
Can't be common. Because
you don't hear
plenty
about
of blind
it very
people
often.
In the world.
Right.
There's a lot of blind people in the world. It's it's not like we can just fix it. So it can't be common at all.
But there's people donating, eyes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For
there's
various
people
reasons.
That there are organ donors that are just I'm one of those people. I'm an organ donor. I'm once I'm dead, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want.
Sure.
If it'll help, that's great. Yeah, that's on my driver's license.
Right.
Find me in a mangled wreck. I'm gonna die in a tragic motorcycle jumping accident. It's gonna be so badass. Jump a bunch of buses.
But the remake for this, that's really what I was finding when I was searching for this film.
I must have seen, like you said, I must have seen at least some of it because that was what I was confusing. I was thinking of that scene, the road scene, the highway scene, but I was thinking of it happening in daylight. And you're right, it happens in daylight in that movie. And
I think I could be wrong. I think it happens in the daytime. But I've only seen that one time. I did not care for it. So
yeah, I don't think I saw. I only think I saw part of it. Or it's possible that maybe it was just one of those movies that I had on in the background and paid very little attention to. It's possible it's kind of one of those situations.
But they remade all of these films. They remade Pulse. They remade Cairo, and they remade Shutter. They remade The Eye. And, I mean, it goes on, but that's,
The Grudge, The Ring.
The Grudge, yeah.
Yeah, I never saw... I don't think I was aware of the remake of Shutter. I mean, I'm not surprised, because like you said, it was the thing to do is to remake those. I don't think I even knew that.
It's pointless. It's pointless. Just go watch the original. It had Joshua Jackson and Rachel Taylor. Joshua Jackson of Dawson's Creek fame.
Mighty Ducks.
Oh, yeah. Quack, quack.
That's what I know him from, but yeah, I know he's on that too. So yeah. I think when it shows like Death or the Grim Reaper, you have this tall figure in black guiding the people out of the rooms. I like that. That's pretty cool. I mean, sure, you could say it's cliche, but I still like it.
Well, yeah, it's cliche, but it's
appropriate.
Is the Taoist religion? That's their Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Am I saying that
right? the other thing about Asian culture is, even besides religion, like outside of religion, a lot of Asian cultures simply just sort of believe in the spirits being very present
Yeah.
and among us. Like, because you can there's Asian people who are Christians, and you know they follow the Christian faith stuff outside in like spirits being around us and being in the air and influencing things. A lot of them do. It's just in a lot of Asian cultures, so
Right.
you get why like a lot of these movies work this way.
Right.
So in this, it's they're always around, and some of the stuff she sees is interesting. Some of it's super creepy, like the young woman, like the woman and the baby that show up at like the weird deli or whatever. Like,
she's just like cut in half, right?
yeah, and she's like licking. She's like licking the display, and it gets even weirder because the fucking waitress can see too.
Yeah,
and it's never explained. She's like, "Oh yeah, you see them." It's like it's the owner's wife and kid. He's waiting for them to come back or something like that. And it's like, that's never explained. It's like, how the hell can the waitress see stuff? Does she have her own movie? Is she like constantly haunted?
Yeah, that's the prequel.
Yeah.
That's
one of the creepier things is that like maimed woman like with holding the dead baby, like licking the display. Well, and then like later she gets her food and she just looks at it. It's like, yeah, I'm not eating this.
Isn't her tongue like a foot long too? It's like super like long and gross.
Yeah, it's like I think she's missing like some of her mouth, so her tongue's like more exposed or something. Which they do like really to great effect better in The Grudge. The Grudge has a whole thing of that, right? Of somebody like having like their whole like bottom jaw off, so the tongue's just like like that. There's a whole thing of that in The Grudge, the original anyway.
Yeah, I never cared for Ju-on or the American remake very much.
They're okay. There's just not very much going on, and they're like completely oppressive movies because it's just like once you find out what the problem is, you realize there's no stopping it. Like, she goes through all this effort to find out what it is, and it's just like, guess what? You can't get away from it. The second one just picks up from the same thing, and it's the same thing over again. It's like, yeah, you're fucked. It's kind of what it is in The Grudge. It's like, yep, doesn't matter if you know or not. You can't stop it. You're fucked.
I'm saying
I like The Grudge just for some of its moments. There's a really great moment in The Grudge, in the original, the Japanese thing, where she's like almost alone when she's at like her like office building late at night. Remember? Mm-hmm. And she sees like the security footage of like the thing coming up the hall. Like, that's really creepy. So the movie as a whole maybe doesn't work for me, but it has moments that I think are really good, and that's one of them is the security footage, grainy footage of like these long hallways. I've always been freaked out by hallways, which I think comes from even a movie I don't even like that much, but The Shining. Mm-hmm. The Shining taught me to fear long, empty hallways, even like in the middle of the afternoon. Mm-hmm. They can be scary.
Mm-hmm. But I was just thinking, I'm seeing a pattern with all these remakes. You put like an A-list, pretty woman in the lead because you've got Naomi Watts, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Kristen Bell. Let's see, who was the one in Shudder? I said. Anyway, she's the same way.
Okay, I didn't see that one, but yeah, I'm not surprised they did the same thing. But yeah, Naomi Watts was really good. I really like her a lot. That was like kind of like the height of Naomi Watts.
It was really kind of before she hit like superstardom.
Yeah, I always like Naomi Watts. She's super pretty, and just sort of magnetic, I guess.
She was in Children of the Corn 4, 5.
Was she? Wow,
that was one of the first times I ever saw her. Yeah.
I didn't see any after 3. Or that's not true. I did. I saw like one of the latest ones, and it was horrible. One might even be the latest one. It's from like 2012 or something like that. I don't know.
They did a remake, I think, around that period of time.
Yeah, they did a 2009 remake. I get what they're doing. It's not too bad in some parts. In some parts, it's just stupid.
It walks between the rows.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you get when you base movies, like an entire series of movies based on a super short story. Like,
yeah.
It's a good story. It's effective. And I would say the original movie isn't bad. It expands on the story in a decent way. I think I've said this before, but the main problem with me is the movies that it gives away the setup. Mm-hmm. It gives everything away. It should just start with Lyndall Hamilton and the guy driving. and then we follow them into it. Not a voiceover by a kid telling us completely everything that happened and what they're going into. That's stupid. They should never have done that.
The audience is stupid. That's the problem. Their target audience is not smart enough to put that together.
Yeah.
They need to know what's going on immediately.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Can you imagine, like, how dumb is that audience? Because if they're reading the story, they're just going to become impatient with it. Like, the story's like 30 pages long, people. You're going to get impatient with it. It's like, what's going on? This is boring. I don't know what's happening.
I'm on page 1 and it sucks.
Yeah, but I mean, there's people like that for sure.
No, that's people that would see that movie and want a big, narration in the beginning.
So as much as like this film could also be called psychological horror, I almost think of it as more as like emotional horror. Because it stands out to me so differently for being more deeply emotional than most movies that have like these sorts of elements in it. And I really appreciate it because I think it's done well. I mean, if it was done crappy, it'd be a disaster. But I think it's done really well. Like I really like Mun. I really get a sort of a feel for her life and her experience. And you admire her. She's a strong person. She's a resilient person, and she's only trying to help. And she goes through all this stuff, and and she gets to see different people who have encountered loss and pain. And I think it says a lot again about like coping, how people cope with loss and tragedy and stuff like that. And I don't know, it just makes me feel kind of hopeful. Something I like about it.
Well, she's a great character and very, very sympathetic character, and I don't think the film would work as well without, her portrayal.
For sure.
And it's almost more of a drama than a horror film in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is so soft, the scares.
Yeah. Again, I mean, as much as that works, a part of me thinks that's more has to do also. I think compared to like the Japanese and Thai and Korean and stuff, I think the Chinese filmmakers are more limited. I can't think of like a gory, Well,
you remember the Ghostbusters remake didn't get shown in China because it didn't pass the censors.
Right. Because it didn't.
They don't want ghosts in movies, right?
It didn't satisfy their view of ghosts, I guess. Because ghosts are taken a bit more seriously over there. So over here, it's like ghosts. Okay, whatever we do, they're scary or they're goofy, whatever. They're ghosts. Who cares, right? But over there, they're like, no, ghosts are a serious thing. You can't fuck around with this. Yeah. So I guess that's part of why. But I mean, but at the same time, we have enough of those movies anyway. That's why I kind of like that this movie takes a different direction, takes a different tack. I think it's kind of cool that, there's some scary, creepy stuff going on, but again, it's more of a drama. It's telling more of an emotional type of story. And as you said, it works really well because we really get behind this character. We feel for her, and we admire her struggle and her goals and stuff, and the young doctor too, because he's very young, so that a lot of people don't take him too seriously for being a doctor, and he has a lot to live up to. He has an uncle that probably helped get him to where he is, and he's trying to be professional, and he knows you're not supposed to get emotionally involved with the person, and she's telling him this stuff that's supposed to be crazy, and he's logical, and he's a doctor, but she's so hurt when at first he doesn't believe her that it wins him over because she's just so hurt by it. She's like, well, you don't believe me, you can't help me. And he really puts it all out on the line there to help her.
He's potentially, risking his career, helping her.
Sure,
also.
Yeah. Very much so. And I mean, he's willing to go all the way to Thailand with her. So he's a fairly admirable guy. So I mean, for all the sad stuff that happened and the tragic ending of the disaster and stuff, it's hopeful also because, and that's how it ends too. She's walking through the crowd and then she meets him. It's like, that they've forged a meaningful connection, whether it's going to be romantic. A lot of horror movies end with a very downer ending, but this movie already has enough downer stuff going on in it. There's all sorts of and it's in a way more powerful than some of the downer stuff in horror because, so much of the horror is very thin. It's not much under the surface. You see people getting killed and stuff. The point is you're not really going to care about them. They're not that important. But in this, it makes a point to make you care about the deaths and the tragedies that are happening. You see, again, the ghost of a little boy that killed himself because he lost his report card. And eventually there's a little girl that she's friends with that have been facing all these surgeries, trying to have a normal life, and eventually one of the surgeries she doesn't make it through, which is really sad. And Ling's story about having these abilities and being shunned for it to the point where she takes her own life, and her mother at first won't forgive her. I have to say, at first I was confused by what happened, but what happens, of course, is when they're at the house, she possesses Mun and gets Mun to start to take her own life because the mother has to reenact a way to save her. So the mother comes up and saves Mun from hanging herself, and that breaks the cycle type thing.
Oh, okay. So I didn't realize that either.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't. I had to watch it a couple times, and then I read a synopsis. But that's what happened, is that she possesses Mun so that she can physically hang herself that way, and then the mother comes up and stops her. And that's, I guess, symbolic of stopping the daughter for real, because that was the other thing. Like a lot of the people in her culture, she was just angry at her daughter for leaving her. She was very confused and upset by it, and she hadn't been able to forgive her, but now she is able to.
Yeah, I mean, in Christianity, it's looked upon as suicide being a sin also.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's quite as bad, but it's almost like if you commit suicide in their culture, you're like disgracing your family, as well as they lost their loved one.
Yeah, and yet in Japanese culture, suicide is not revered, but there's a certain amount of respect for it.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I mean, Japan has a super high suicide rate, and that's very sad and upsetting. But at the same time, in some contexts, I kind of like the Japanese view, and I understand it. I'm not even condoning it and stuff, but the things about like samurais committing seppuku and stuff, and that exists to this day. You'll have like a businessman who, if he makes a big mistake and costs his company a bunch of money, he'll kill himself because he feels that's the way to atone. And yeah, I guess there's a certain amount of honor in it.
Sure.
But the people in us would just say it's not worth it, man. That's your life. You might have made a huge mistake, but it's only money. But
I respect the hell out of that, though.
But yeah, I respect it. That they have that sort of view of the only way to atone for something is to take responsibility, to take their own life. Actually, it's funny. So I have this book by, I can't remember his name, but this guy, he's written a few books on Asian culture and so. And he writes this account from this other guy that he met who was really old. Look, this guy's old too, so he's old enough to have known somebody that was alive in the late 19th century who actually witnessed a real example of it. It was I don't know, he was some other British guy, and he was in Japan for some reason, sometime in like the 1860s or 1870s, and I can't remember exactly what happened. But he was visiting some sort of like castle, and as he made his way up to the gates, like he was supposed to be going there. I can't remember if he was invited or what. As he made his way up to the gates, some guys from the castle shot at him with rifles. But very quickly, like the captain of the guards was like, "What the hell are you doing? That's not an intruder," or something like that, and stopped it. So then, anyway, when they invited him in, they called in the guys and found out the guy that fired, and he very solemnly, right in front of them, the guy's like, "Well, this has to be done." Like. He said, "I'm the one who fired," and he committed seppuku right there. And it was they had a very long, the ceremony for it, where they had like they laid down the thing on the floor, and he put on like his best kimono, and he came out and he apologized profusely, and then he did that thing, and the second guy lopped his head off, as they do to save him the pain.
Wow.
And it was all to atone for the mistake of firing on this guy when he wasn't supposed to. And he came forward right away. He said, "I was the one who fired." Like, it's just so weird. You live your whole life up to this moment, and then you're just ready to just do that because you made this mistake. He didn't even hit the guy. Like, the guy didn't even get shot. But the fact was, he fired when he wasn't supposed to fire, and he just said, "Yeah, okay, this is what we have to do." So yeah, it's one of the few times like an outsider, like a Westerner, like actually witnessed the event, and he wrote like some account of it and stuff. It's in the book I have. It's really riveting, but it's also like seems so weird and crazy outside of our experience. again, this is over 100 years, but it's in certain people, not everybody.
And talk about taking responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, and again, I believe in that, but sometimes maybe that's going overboard.
Yeah. In that case, definitely, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction.
And that's the other thing. I think the guy himself wanted to talk them out of it, and they said, "No, there's no talking out of this. This is how it has to go." Like the guy himself didn't want it to happen, right?
Right.
And you're like, "No, this is just how it was." But like, just what impressed him was like how stoic and dignified everybody involved was. It was very unemotional and just done. But yeah, speaking of like Asian horror movies or shitty ones, like I know I watched like this stupid American movie, The Forest, which is in horrible taste.
Yeah.
About
it's not good. Yeah.
About that suicide forest in Japan, which is a super sad thing.
I was actually going to bring that up. The suicide forest, like, isn't that a place that people go to kill themselves to save their family any sort of embarrassment? They do it there so they're not disgracing their family.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's become a real problem.
Yeah.
Because routinely, they're finding the bodies of people in there, and now you're getting really sick tourists that want to go see if they can find dead people.
Like that fucking
that YouTube guy.
Whatever his stupid.
Yeah, I don't know what
stupid
name
name
asshole
is.
YouTube guy. What a terrible thing to do.
They like found a body, right? And they're like poking it and stuff, and
it's like posing with it. He's like,
oh my gosh, that's the culture that's going on right now. That's the next generation.
I know. People. Like I said, I try to like I stand up for millennials and stuff, but it doesn't help when stuff like this happens, right? Nobody wants to just be lumped into a group or their generation, but when some of the more prevalent members are doing stuff like that, that's what's going to happen.
Logan Paul.
Oh, right. He was talking about like fighting in the UFC lately.
I think he's done some cage fighting. I think they say it was rigged, but
yeah. Whatever. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody kill him in the ring.
Yeah, go fight somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they're like the lowest of the low tier of.
But yeah, not only was that movie The Forest bad, but yeah, it's just an awful taste.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, they were trying to say like the forest was haunted, right? And
yeah, they're trying to make it sound like it like drew people to it to make them do it, or they go crazy and I saw it and I can barely remember what the hell happened, but there's a whole thing about what was it, like her sister went missing in the forest.
That's what it was, yeah.
There's some sort of like weird time loop or something where she comes running out. I can't remember. I think there's like a time loop in it or something.
It wasn't Olivia Munn, was it? It was
I cannot remember.
Who's the one that was in the X-Men movie? Well, you don't like the X-Men movies.
No, I can't remember. I thought that was Olivia Munn.
Well, maybe it is. Yeah, it is. Is
she the one that played Psylocke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never even saw that movie, but yeah, I knew that they cast her as Psylocke.
I think that's her.
Psylocke's an interesting case because that's a character that's been both Caucasian and Asian. So how do you cast that?
I think Olivia Munn's like half Asian, so maybe that's how you do
it. You split the difference.
It was Natalie Dormer who was in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
She was
in Game of Thrones?
Marjorie, who married Joffrey.
Yeah, the Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's really hot. But yeah, I guess that's her in the movie. I saw the movie once. I barely remember it. It's a really crappy movie.
It's such a cool concept for a movie, but
I mean, I knew I wasn't gonna like it, but
oh yeah, me too. Trying to do like J-horror, but it's not Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. They have some Japanese people and locations, but it's not J-horror.
And the guy who did The Grudge, the same director, did both, right? Did the remake and the original.
I believe so. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I want to see the Shudder remake. I'm sure it's no good just to see it. Of course, I really just like The Eye. Shudder is a movie I haven't seen in freaking years. I know that's our friend Orc's like favorite J horror movie. He loves Shudder.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna watch Shudder again, but Shudder for me again is like once you know the premise, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a plot twist at the end.
I forget that, so that helps.
Yeah.
I forget any twist, so that'll be good for me.
Well, it's the same.
I mean, I know it's about like taking pictures and like realizing that you're seeing ghosts and stuff in the pictures. Mm-hmm. That's all I really remember.
It's been a while since I've seen it as well. It's it was a period of time I was just like going through a list, like trying to check off all the big ones. And
yeah, I'm kind of in that mode now.
There are a lot of bad ones. That's the problem. Is what you find.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is with a lot of things. You have to sift through a lot of crap.
Mm-hmm. A lot of copycat type stuff that tried to piggyback off the success of some of the good ones.
Sure. Yeah, it happens with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. As I learned, paying $30 for a Tartan Extreme DVD quite a few times.
Oh man.
What
are you gonna do? Yeah, now I really want to see the second The Eye because you say it's good, and I've read that it's pretty good, so I'm interested in it. See what that's like.
Yeah, I may watch that tonight. Actually,
I know it's about a girl that she tries to kill herself, but fails. She discovers she's pregnant, and for some reason, attempting suicide while pregnant has now given her the ability to see ghosts or something like that. And yeah, that sounds kind of cool.
It's The Eye, The Eye 2, The Eye 3, and then I think Child's Eye. I think is how it is.
Let's see. I have it here. It'll say. I held it go. Yeah, Child's Eye, 2010.
I don't remember liking The Eye 3 too much, but it's been a while since I've seen that one too.
Mm-hmm. That one's about like teenagers.
Oh.
So, kind of speaking of this, have you seen Paranormal Activity Tokyo Night?
No, I can't find it.
I
want to see if I can find it online to watch. Because it's a direct sequel, right? To the first film.
I think so.
Or a non-official sequel.
Yeah, it's outside the normal continuity, obviously.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board, though. I didn't even know it existed until recently.
Oh, really? No, I was always aware of it. But yeah, 3, I know you and Work did 3 or whatever not too long ago. I actually had seen 3 and 4 back to back a few days ago. They just happened to be on TV. Although, of course, seeing them on TV, I think, diminishes them even further.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go on about it. But I'm just, because I don't hate them. I just get nothing out of them whatsoever. It just does not work for me.
4, if I remember correctly, is not very good.
Yeah. It's the one with the pretty teen and the dancing Xbox. I don't know. To me, there's no difference. I don't see any difference between 3 and 4.
Well, 3 at least is the period piece. It's the
80s
prequel.
one.
Yeah, which very, very unbelievable. The entire movie, like even the fact that someone would have that much time,
they would just keep changing the tape every 6 hours.
Exactly. We're doing SLP, okay? So,
yeah.
But
I like how once the babysitter gets terrorized, they're just jazzed about it. The guy's like, "Yeah, keep taping. This is awesome." I'm like, "What? Your kids live in this house."
I know. Like, what are you still doing in that house? Like, why are you? I don't get it.
The thing that bothers, not the most, there's lots of things bother me. I'm not going to go to a list. But one of the things that bothers me is, at the root of Paranormal Activity is a story I like. I love stuff about cults and witches and summoning demons. The problem with these movies is they never show any of that. It's always like in the last 5 minutes and then it's over. You finally get to see some cult activity. It's like, oh, there's a big bonfire. There they are. And, oh, you ran into the closet and then the camera hits the floor and it's over. I don't know. Every time they get to the part that I like, it's over. Every time.
Yeah.
I think that's why I kept watching them. I kept waiting. I was like, okay, this is the one where finally something's like going to happen at the end. It's actually going to have a super abrupt ending. We're actually going to see something about the cult, or they're going to fight those movies. Just because like a sheet moves, or I don't know, that doesn't work for me, or some item drops from the ceiling. Now, that's not the type of thing that scares me. It's just not. I don't even think it would scare me in real life, to tell you the truth. I can't imagine being scared of things like that. I mean, once you get to the extreme, I guess if some demon force pulls me by the legs, backwards, sure. But the other stuff, I don't
God,
think
that's
so.
what it would take to scare you? Okay. If a sheet moved, I would be the fuck out of there. That's just how I am.
Cares? The pot fell, okay. I see stuff fall all the time, and I don't think anything about it.
Well, right. I'm just saying, like, if it moved, then you knew it couldn't do it on its own.
Yeah, but it never seems to do it that way. They didn't show like a pot like racing across the counter. The pot just fell like gravity throws it or something.
Well, that, yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand. I wouldn't freak out over that. But, if all the pots fall at one time, maybe.
I mean, there is a part where like a knife falls, which is pretty scary because she puts the knife down, then she comes back and it's gone. And she's like, what the hell? So she gets out a new knife, and then the knife falls. Sure, I get that.
That must be in part 4 then, because I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's in like the mother. She has like a knife out in the kitchen. She's cutting stuff. She turns away to do something. The knife goes whoop, like up to the ceiling and out of sight. She looks around for a while, shrugs her shoulders, gets another knife she's cutting, and then like after a little while, the knife like drops straight down or something. Sure,
That's cool.
Yeah, I get that.
That's cool. And would that be enough to scare you a little bit?
That would scare me. Yep. I will. I'll give you that one. But are you seeing Halloween? I know you have no enthusiasm for it, but I have to tell you, it's pretty good.
Okay.
Maybe I don't like
5
everything
stars,
about it. Oh, well, of course. But I have problems with things about it, but not enough to really diminish saying it's good. It has a lot of good parts. Maybe as a whole, I can't like the whole thing because there's some choices they made and stuff I didn't like, but stylistically, it's very strong. Tone and atmosphere is good. It's shot really well. It's super high quality. Like, it's a way higher quality than other Halloween movies. Like, you're kind of blown away by the quality, how stuff looks and how stuff is set and stuff. So I don't know. I'm sure I don't know if you'll like it. I think you'll be able to find things to like about it, just like I did.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
Because
sure
I know
I'll like it.
I know you're sort of lukewarm about it, thinking I don't even know, but it surprised me. It was better than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's past experiences have made me that way.
Yeah,
getting excited for things and then it just being a total letdown.
I don't think this is a total letdown.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I see it's getting generally good reviews.
It certainly
from pretty much
blows
everyone.
away the Rob Zombie films. I know that's a low bar, but I mean, it destroys those.
Yeah, 70-something million over the weekend, and now cool. LeBron James is going to apparently make another Friday the 13th film.
I guess that's what happens when you're LeBron James and you have all this money.
Well, shit, if that's what it takes.
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, what is it going to take for these people to realize just take $10 million, make a fucking movie, and release it worldwide, and it's going to make money? I mean,
yeah, it's a pretty successful formula. It's kind of cool that LeBron James is a fan of the series.
Mm-hmm. It's just, man.
But yeah, I won't go into Halloween because of spoilers and stuff like that. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to go see it.
No, I was impressed. One thing that's really strong about it is just the fact that the one thing that makes like the 40 years thing strong is like how like the mask has aged. It makes the mask look great. The mask looks better in this than anything else because it's aged. Because like in some of the movies, like 4 and 5, it's too white, and also the whole part here, it looks like he has gills because it's like. This, they have the collar up, so he actually looks like it fits him properly and stuff, and the mask looks fantastic. And I mean, the kills are absolutely on point. And even though there's several kills that are off screen, you don't even really mind because they're used effectively, and there's enough kills on screen anyway. So yeah, they do a lot right. So there are a few things I have problems with, but they do a lot right. I'm impressed. I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to like redefine it for you or be like, oh, this is the best. But I don't know. Considering like how low we might set the bar and how we've been beaten down and lowered our expectations and stuff like that. Like I think it certainly clears all that pretty well. So who would have known that this was the group of people that do a good job? I'm not saying it's the perfect job, and I'll always have issues with some of the story choices and stuff like that. And I still don't think it was really that important to even have a story be about Laurie and be 40 years later. I don't think it's that important. Everybody makes it seem like that's the whole crux of the story. Here's the weirdest thing. You know how we all talked about how this movie makes a point of saying the brother connection doesn't exist? Like, that was really important to them. You watch the movie and it winds up, like, not even factoring into it. You're like, why did you even make a point of that if it doesn't change anything?
Why was it such a problem?
Yeah, it changes nothing. Because they still make it super personal. Like, I'm not ruining anything in here. You've seen, like, stuff where she's going around going, Michael, Michael, Michael. Like, she knows him super well. Like, they have this super personal connection. It's funny, though, but it's funny. Beforehand, Bruce and Eric and I were both, like, saying how annoying it was. They were talking about Michael Myers killed 3 people. She acknowledges in the movie that he killed 5. So that's good.
Okay.
She herself says killed 5 people, because it is the original sister, the 3 teenagers, and the guy he got the uniform from.
They should have brought back Paul Rudd.
I'll watch that movie. I'm a big fan of 6. I'm a big fan of 6 for no reason. I have no reason to like it. I have every reason to pick it apart and hate it. It fucks with the story. It does so many stupid things, and I like it anyway.
See, I don't even think that the whole Thorn thing is a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. I just the execution was terrible.
I agree.
And of course, that's none of that is in the new film.
I don't like the producer's cut. Actually, I like the normal cut. The producer's cut is this weird thing with like rocks or something, and no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to own the producer's cut just so I can have it, but I never thought the producer's cut was that good. Well, that was silly. Just made it. It was already silly, and it made it sillier. Is what I mean. 6 is quite silly, and they make it sillier.
I don't like either cut. The producer's cut, he keeps as Orc was putting it. He's playing Yahtzee, throwing the rocks out there.
Pretty dumb. But no, I'll always like 6. I don't know why. Just maybe my memory being tied up in it. I also kind of appreciate 6 because it happened when slashers were absolutely dead when it came out. They were dead. They've been dead for 6 years when that movie came out. And there it was, standing up on its own. Nobody gave a shit. But there it is.
What year is that? 91?
95.
Oh, wow. 95, okay.
So yeah, slashers, they're actually about to get revived just a year later with Scream. But for at least 6 years, like, slashers died at like 89. 89 was the last gasp of slashers. Mm-hmm. Slashers had their heyday in the early to mid 90s. By the later 80s, they were getting derivative and shitty. By like 1990, they're gone. They're just gone.
You can count on one hand the good ones that are in the early 90s.
Candyman.
Oh, yeah, Candyman. Okay, cool.
That's
I wouldn't even call that a slasher.
That's all I can think of.
Well, Intruder.
Never saw it.
Starring the Raimi brothers.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to see it just because I'd like to see something from that era.
Scott Spiegel, I believe, directed it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to see that at some point because, yeah, that's like the absolute dead era for slashers. Just the first half of the 90s. They're dead and gone. In that time, two really weird flagship ones came out. Obviously, you have Jason Goes to Hell, which was a false start. It's like, this will revive things. No, it's weird and stupid and bad. And then it's kind of too bad. New Nightmare is not that bad. New Nightmare's pretty good in a lot of ways. But again, the timing was just all wrong. Like, just nobody cared. And
I think in general, people
Halloween wasn't nearly as, you know, popular as the other two. Like Heels, 93, 94, 95. But by then, nobody gave a shit. Just like, yeah, okay, Halloween 6, whatever.
Yeah, I think in general, people like New Nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, they do. But I don't think they did at the time. You know, again, I just think that. Because think about it. Jason Goes to Hell comes out. New Nightmare comes out. There's all this talk about Freddy versus Jason. It doesn't happen for a decade. Sorry.
See, I was really on board with all that stuff at that period of time because I was old enough to where, you know, I knew what was going on with those franchises. You know, I was, you know, probably 15. I was on board
because I realized my age was that I'd missed out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was into slashers or getting into slashers. You know, I'm 11, 12, starting to get into slashers, and I realized all the good ones are from, you know, the 80s and stuff.
Right.
And there aren't any now. So I'm just like, yes, bring out slashers. Because that's what I saw. Like, when I saw, like, as lame as it is, when I saw Jason Goes to Hell, that was, you know, that was the Friday the 13th of my generation. Oh my God, we did not get a good one. Although I don't think it's the worst one. I still hate Part 8. I could talk forever about how much I hate Part 8. And yet, people who watch The Sausage Factory, and most of the guys on The Sausage Factory, seem to love that film. And I have no idea why.
I do. I know no one else does.
You're not the only one, man. And tons of people in the chat love it. I can't stand that movie, man. I hate it so much. Like, I hate it.
So, I mean, when you think about it, like, Scream was really the slasher film for people our age. Like, because we didn't really have a proper slasher film, you know, or a good slasher film.
Which is one of the reasons why I like it a lot. And plus, you know, it was self-referential. It talked about the tropes and cliches of the other movies. It's funny, like, Mike was old enough to actually be insulted by that. Whereas somebody like me, I thought it was smart.
Yeah.
But at the time, Mike just thought, oh, this is making fun of the stuff from the 80s. But to me, no, it's not making fun of it at all. It's, you know, saying why it was cool. But anyway.
Such a brilliant film. I mean, I don't really like Scream, but I like what it did for the genre.
I like Scream.
But the first one, yeah, I think it's a good film, but just not particularly something I want to watch all the time. But it's brilliant. It's really brilliant for what it did.
I mean, thank you, Wes Craven, for reviving your own genre.
I mean, not only did you make such great stuff, you know, in the heyday, but then you started a whole nother wave of, you know, horror films in general, not just slashers, but the whole genre got revamped.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, there were a lot of painful imitators of Scream that weren't very good, but still, you know, you got things going.
Yeah, but that's how it goes with everything, you know.
So, speaking of movies from that generation, I heard there's going to be a new Valentine movie.
Never cared for it.
That was not a good... No, I didn't... I mean, I watched all those, but I didn't like Urban Legend. No, didn't like it.
Oh, yeah, I watched them, but I didn't like them either.
What's funny is, like, how Scream changed things in that, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or, like, existed since the 70s. It was a book. I read it when I was young. And then when they made it into a movie, they changed it because of Scream. They tried to make it like Scream, which the book is really not much like that. I mean, it has the same general plot and stuff, but it's really not like a slasher. And yet they tried to really make it into a slasher just because of Scream.
I'd imagine that was pretty successful, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was. I mean, it hit at the right time. It had all the big names. You know, it had a super, as we say, Abercrombie and Fitch type cast. And you got the whole third act of Jennifer Love Hewitt running around in like her tank top.
I didn't hate that part.
That'll sell some tickets. But yeah, I watched pretty much all those of that generation, most of which weren't very good, but you know, at least they happened.
Urban Legend. I'm trying to see what else came out around that time. course, they made numerous sequels to Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
And they also started making some other remakes. This is a later one, but they made a half decent, although I don't like it that much, remake of My Bloody Valentine. They made a god awful, horrifyingly bad, upsetting me so much remake of Black Christmas.
Yeah.
Black Christmas is one of my favorite movies, period, not just slashers. One of my favorite movies, period. I love that movie. The first time I saw that movie, I was just like blown away by how good it was. I was like, how come people don't talk about this movie? It's been around forever. To me, it's the first true slasher.
Yeah.
I know that
like
the Texas Chainsaw was, but I don't count Texas Chainsaw as a slasher. It's something
I don't either. You didn't like the jaundice monster living in the basement or wherever, or the attic, and
eating eyeballs.
Yeah,
the part where he eats somebody's eyeball. The only thing I liked about that movie is Michelle Trachtenberg, because I used to have a big crush on her back in the day.
Well,
that movie's absolute garbage, and it's like a lot of those remakes, even like the Halloween one, where they try to really expand in the origin. It's like, oh, his name is Billy, and blah 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 blah. Like none of that's in the original. In the original, it's just like a mysterious person. We have no idea who the hell it is, and just because he's saying Billy doesn't mean his name is Billy. But they're like, yes, his name is Billy, and he came from an incestuous home, and blah blah blah. Like, who cares? I don't want to know all that.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in there. Lacey Chabert.
Oh, I remember her.
They're all, lots of very attractive young ladies in that film.
Yeah, well, they can't beat Olivia Hussey.
Margot Kidder.
Margot Kidder.
That is true.
What did I see Olivia Hussey in recently? Oh, yeah, she's in It.
Oh, you watched the miniseries?
Yeah. Not all of it, but some of it was on TV. It's super long on TV commercials.
What'd you think?
Oh, I've seen it lots of times.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, upon rewatching,
it's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's really bad. I mean, it has some things that I like, kind of, because they remind me a little bit of the book. But I mean, it's horribly acted.
Mm-hmm.
It's super goofy and cheap. And I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there that hate the new It and really like the old one, but they're just living in a world of backwards nostalgia.
I don't know who would. It's so slow and anticlimactic. Oh man, it's exactly what you would expect during that period of time to beat the censors, to take that Stephen King book and make into something that can actually show on primetime network television.
The themes are pretty much obliterated. Any sort of subtext is gone. Again, it's poorly cast, poorly acted, looks cheap. I mean, I certainly get a kick out of what's his name, Tim Curry, but you're not supposed to. He's supposed to be scary, and I'm sure, and I know it's subjective. Lots of people are saying, "You think what's his name is scary?" Yeah, I think more so than Tim Curry. More so than Tim Curry, absolutely. Tim Curry's there going, Well,
that was the stupidest comment I always saw on the new films. Like, Pennywise isn't scary. Like, you're a grown ass man. What are you going to be fucking scared of a clown for? Like, it's a movie.
Yeah.
If it's not scary to you, okay, that's fine. I mean, it takes a lot to scare a grown person. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, and everybody knows I am a cliche. I am afraid of clowns. I always have been.
Really?
Yeah. My two big fears, clowns, and even above them, ventriloquist dummies.
Oh yeah. I think that's a real common one too.
Yeah. So I'm a cliche in that. And I've heard people in the last few years, especially when it was becoming popular and stuff like that, people are fuck it, clowns aren't scary. Well, it just depends, right? I've always been afraid of them. My earliest memory is some circus coming to town. We were at the county rink, and what's funny is it's a very old memory. I'm 4, and we're in the audience, and things haven't even started yet, and the clowns are sort of warming us up, coming over, and the clown comes over, and according to my mother, what the clown did was he put his hand to his mouth and went, "Hello," like that, and he said hello to us, and I burst into tears and started crying. Mm-hmm. I remember that moment. I don't remember the clown going hello. I remember him like roaring and screaming like a wild animal. That's my memory of it. My memory of him going like or something like that. That what was in my childhood brain, and it stayed in the thing. But Mom said he just said hello, but that's not how I perceived things. I was like, the horrible monster is screeching at us. But yeah, always been afraid of them. And also, I had like a clown doll thing that I was terrified of and buried in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like a Chucky doll, smaller, but it had. I remember had used to make really detailed dolls because like he had like overalls on, but he had like a pocket that you could zip up. Like he had like clothes you could do stuff with. And anyway, I was terrified of him too. Threw him down in the basement.
Always been creeped out by dolls and puppets and ventriloquist dummies, stuff like that.
Yeah, ventriloquist dummies is the number one thing. The old-fashioned ventriloquist dummy. So, like, it doesn't matter that, like, Dead Silence isn't a good movie. It's effective to me because that stuff creeps the hell out of me. Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't like it, but I mean, I wouldn't say like it's a really good movie. It's it's a fairly average movie, is what I would say. It's an average movie. I'm not saying it's to be hated or shunned, but it's effective to me because I'm scared of that shit.
I mean, for that period of time, it was probably a little better than average. I'm trying to.
Yeah, that's true. That's like 2007.
Yeah, but
I'm surprised that hasn't gotten a bunch of sequels. So many things do. How come then that didn't get a bunch of sequels?
I don't think it did very well.
But still, lots of things didn't do very, very well and got a bunch of shitty sequels.
Yeah, that's true.
That's completely normal. All sorts of, like, I'll name almost any, like, horror movie, and there's a bunch of shitty sequels to it, whether it was popular or not. I mean, was Puppet Master really popular? They made, like, 15 of those.
They were all, like, direct-to-video, right?
Speaking of, like, puppets and stuff, yeah. The Puppet Master movies could never scare me. I'd have to be, like, 5 to be scared of those. They're so lame.
Me either. It's so stupid. I've almost gone back and watched them, like, just to see, but I'm like, nope, don't waste your time.
I have very, very foggy memories of the first or possibly second one, but I can't really tell even which one it was.
Well, that's Full Moon, right? So
I don't know. Maybe.
Demonic Toys, Doll Man, all those like crossed over at one point. So they all fought each other at one point. They all did a versus movie.
God. Oh, look, Parker Posey is in the I remake. Weird.
I was looking at I Know What You Did Last Summer, just curious as to how well it did. Budget of 17, box office 125.
Wow, that broke 100.
Not too bad.
Did I cut out or did you?
I'm not sure.
Okay. For me, you kind of paused. So, I don't know. I just kept talking. I wasn't sure. So, yeah, you've got Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, Love Hewitt, and the other guy. Some other guy.
Yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr. Yeah, so.
They're still married.
Who's Freddie Prinze Jr. married to?
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh, really? Oh, that bums me out.
Mm-hmm.
I was obsessed with her when I was like 13, 14.
I was very obsessed with her.
Which is weird because I never cared about Buffy. Never watched the show. I was obsessed with her without seeing that show, which is kind of odd. I know.
She's the main reason I started watching that show.
From that dead era, did you see the movie The Return? With Sarah Michelle Gellar, came out in like 2006, 2007? I've seen scenes of that. What the fuck is it? Like, what's it supposed to be about? All I saw is like she goes into a bar. There's a pickup truck. There's a guy that threatens her. And I don't know. Like, what is the setup of that movie?
I've seen it. I don't remember.
I have to look it up and see what the fuck it's actually about. Because that was sort of supposed to be like kind of like a horror movie, or not like, or at least like a psychological horror, a thriller. It was at least a thriller. See here, 2006 film, The Return.
She has a crazy ex-boyfriend.
Since the age of 11, she's been a trouble person, episodes of self-mutilation, and menacing visions. Goes to Texas. Oh, her truck starts playing Patsy Cline's Sweet Dreams no matter what station she selects. Oh, this is getting spooky. Texas town, bar, childhood. Something about like there were some killings in the town or something years ago. She's having visions of it. I guess she eventually meets the killer. I don't know. I think I watched part of it.
Pretty cliche.
Bland. Pretty bland stuff, yeah. Phil, Sarah Michelle Gellar is the closest thing we have to a Scream Queen since, what's her name, really? Because she was in, even though she's not very important in Scream 2, she's just somebody that gets killed in Scream 2, but she can still put that on her resume. But just trying to look up some stuff about the I remake. It was different. It's in Los Angeles. She's still a violinist. Blind. It's pretty much the same stuff. Yeah, except they moved some of the orders around because they have her seeing visions of people dying in a fire early in the movie. Goes to Mexico.
Yeah, you want to see some funny stuff? Go see what Jessica Alba has to say about that film. She's like, I didn't want to do a slasher film. She thought this was like more artistic.
Well, I mean, in theory, yes. The original is certainly a fairly artistic movie. That's one of the things I liked about it, like the violin stuff, the emotional subtext, etc. I mean, so yes, in theory, although I guess that's not how the remake worked out.
Yeah, but she's doing a fucking remake.
Yeah.
Like it's a cash grab film.
Featuring wooden performances and minimal scares. The Eye is another tedious remake of an Asian horror film. Sounds about right. Jessica Alba's performance was generally criticized as well, calling it vapid. That's funny. She was even nominated for Golden Raspberry. So yeah. I only saw some of that movie. I don't think I saw the whole thing. It still was fairly a success. Budget 12 million, box office 56 million.
I didn't see that in the theater. I know that much. I saw it on probably video.
I've seen very few horror movies in the theater, mostly because of my age, but also because I just haven't believed in most of the ones that come out. Like, yeah, seeing Halloween in the theater last night was kind of unique because I don't generally see a horror movie in the theater for the last 20 years or so. I can probably count on one hand the amount of horror movies I've seen in the theater. Though. And, like, almost all of them are remakes. You know, like the Friday the 13th remake. Yeah, I saw that in the theater. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, I saw the Friday the 13th remake in the theater. I saw the Nightmare on Elm Street remake in the theater. Neither did anything, and neither spawned any sequels. Now we live in this world of endless reboots.
No, they both made money. I mean, they both did well on a monetarily speaking.
Then how come they didn't do more? Like, especially like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I remember seeing him like interviewed and stuff, and the context definitely to come back as Freddy, and he was Freddy now, and they're going to do more. Like, so what the fuck happened? I'm not saying that would have been great, but I wouldn't have minded either. I mean, you know.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it didn't get very good reviews. I mean, critically it didn't do well, but since when did they give a shit?
Yeah, I mean, that's critically 90% of horror movies don't do well, including many of the classics.
I don't know. It is very interesting. I mean, Paramount, they spent entirely too much money on that remake or not Paramount. Was it New Line still?
Yeah.
Or Paramount that did the Friday the 13th.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, Paramount did Freddy. Didn't they?
New Line did Freddy.
Oh, okay. I have them backwards. Okay.
But I mean, I know New Line bought the rights to Friday the 13th when they did Jason Goes to Hell and then Jason X and all that shit. But so I wasn't sure. I guess they did the remake also. But it makes you wonder why they never. I mean, they spent entirely too much money on the remake for one thing.
The remake didn't look like it cost anything. The first one, things like the peril or contrast. I'm thinking of when you see this Halloween movie. When you see this Halloween movie, you see the fucking money. You see the quality. And it's a big contrast to seeing like the Friday the 13th remake, which I'm sure wasn't exactly a cheap movie, but you know, it doesn't look like anything special and doesn't have anybody in the cast and again, we've often said you don't need big name cast people for these movies anyway, so it's not exactly a complaint. I'm just pointing it out. I know in this movie, the guy that plays the sheriff, he's sort of a known actor. I always forget his name. I just recognize his voice. He's somebody. He's not like a big name or anything, but he's somebody, you know, kind of. But besides, besides him and obviously Jamie Lee Curtis, I don't know any of the actors.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, Jessica Alba said on the remake, Jessica Alba said that she found this film to be elegant and very well written, and her character Sydney to be elaborate and very interesting, and thus enabling her to stretch her acting abilities.
Yeah, it didn't really work out. But
I mean, what are her acting abilities? Like putting on a tight pair of jeans? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What did she ever fucking do? Sue Storm? Come on.
Awful. Awful, man, yeah. She's never done anything that required acting ability. She was in Honey, which required dancing ability, but that's not acting ability.
I mean, she was attractive. That's the only thing that ever got her anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's...
yeah, I can't think of her putting in any sort of performance where I was like, oh yeah, she was good. No. Yeah, it's like, yeah, she was hot. That's what it is.
I'm going to go real method. And she apparently like learned Braille and learned to play the violin.
Yeah, fuck yourself. Why would she have to learn Braille? You don't have to learn Braille for a movie. What? All you have to do is run your fingers across it. You don't have to actually understand it for the audience to get it. I could play a blind person in that context. I could read Braille, run my fingers across it. I can't understand it, but in the script I do. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, if you want to be method, like, wear a fucking blindfold. You know? Yeah. Cover your eyes up.
Yeah. I'm really bad at that. I think most of us are. Like, we just rely on sight so much, obviously. Because, like, sometimes I'll walk down my hallway and I'll touch the wall and I'll close my eyes. And I still open my eyes after about 15 seconds. I know there's nothing in front of me. There's nothing for me to bang into or trip to. I'm even touching the wall, and yet I still have the instinct to open my eyes. Like, I'm sure I'm going to crash into something or something, even though it's fucking impossible. Like, I do that all the time.
It's just like being unsure of yourself, I think, is a big part of it. Like, you know nothing's there, but you want to look and make sure just in case.
Yeah. And blind people don't have that. You just have to rely on the other senses, which is why people always talk about them having, higher senses, but they don't. Mm-hmm. They just use them more. They pay more attention to them. I don't know. I actually think I have really good hearing. Hearing really starts to go as you're older. I'm 35 now, and I still hear very sharp. And it's really emphasized by how much my parents can't hear. Because my parents are often surprised, like, if I'm in the house or something, if they're like, they'll be like, call him downstairs or something like that. And before my dad can even, like, call me, I'm down there. I'm like, I heard you talking. I can hear you. And they're blown away by the fact that I can, like, I'm one floor up, I can hear their speaking voices. That's not crazy. But, like, if it was the other way around, there's no way. I'd have to yell. I might as well just go down and talk to them. But, yeah, they're always blown away that I can hear all these things. Like, you heard that? Watching TV with them is awful. They make me crank it up so high.
It's something to do with the way you age too. You're not able to hear certain sounds. Your spectrum gets smaller of what you can actually hear. As
Mhm.
I know, like children can hear sounds
Children can
that
hear
adults
way
can't.
higher,
Yeah,
better than us. But I feel like I have maybe not completely kept that. I've kept it pretty well. I think I have fairly sharp hearing.
yeah. I don't know what you could do otherwise. I mean, there's not like a way to like maintain that, is there?
No, I don't think so. Hearing starts to go, you can get a hearing aid.
Yeah.
It's probably what my dad needs at this point. Because even to my mom, she's like, "Oh, he's deaf." She's always telling him stuff. He's like, "You didn't hear me." He's like, "I didn't hear you."
Yeah. One of my good friends is really hearing impaired, so I'm
Mm.
kind of used to like watching things with subtitles and turning it up really loud and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I watch stuff with subtitles on Netflix all the time now. Anyway, just out of a habit. I don't know why. Just maybe as a guide.
mm-hmm.
Which is weird because again, I hear really well, but I've just gotten kind of used to it. I put a lot of stuff on
Mm-hmm.
subtitles. I think it's because every once in a while there'll be a line that I wasn't sure of, and I'll go back and subtitle it, and then I'm just like, hell, leave it on.
Mm-hmm.
Is usually
Mm-hmm.
what happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that everything's remastered in Dolby, you know, it's you have to turn it up really loud to hear like basic dialogue, and then whenever there's any kind of action, it's
Yeah,
like
and see,
insanely loud.
that's what I hate about watching movies with my parents because they tell me to like crank it because they can't hear like they can't hear the dialogue, and I'm like, as soon as like some action starts, it's gonna like explode our eardrums, and they're like, well, I don't know what else to do because yeah, that's why I hate turning it up with my
Yeah.
parents because like the soundtrack or the sound effects are just gonna be like. My parents are always like, he's muttering. I'm like, he's not muttering.
Uh,
That's what they'll say. He's like, well, he's muttering. I can't make any of that. I'm like, I hear everything perfectly. But like, you're
that's
right.
funny.
This actor that's supposed to enunciate his lines is muttering.
Fucking marble mouth over here. Speak up.
Oh my god.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Speaking of like deafness and blindness, I have only 2 more episodes to go on the new Daredevil season.
Oh, cool.
It's so good. All the Daredevils are good. Like I'm not going to go into a thing talking about all the things. I'll take too long. But all seasons they're really good. I really like them. Really happy. Daredevil is probably the best live action show I've ever seen.
That's season 3, right?
Yeah, season 3. Unfortunately, they canceled Luke Cage and Iron Fist, so those won't get a season 3. So fine. The logical thing to do is make a Heroes for Hire show. Combine them. Heroes for Hire. Boom. Do it. There's a really great episode in Luke Cage season 10 or season 2 episode 10 where Iron Fist is on it and it's just like Heroes for Hire. I love it. A really great episode.
Yeah, you
So
said
hopefully
they've
that's gonna
canceled. Which ones are they canceled now?
just as far as I know, Iron Fist and Luke Cage. I haven't heard anything about Jessica Jones getting canceled, but it should because it's second season. Where I felt like Iron Fist and Luke Cage had decent first seasons, they had much better second seasons. I felt like Jessica Jones had a great first season, really good. And I hate the character, right? So, people know like I'm super biased, and I still thought really good. And the second season is just boring shit.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible, boring, forgettable crap. It's the type of thing that they keep doing with these movies. It's just like, now I need to go on a quest and find the shadowy organization that's behind my powers. Like, they made a Cloak and Dagger show. I bet you, I haven't seen any of it, but I bet you $1 million that's what it's all about. It's going to be about Cloak and Dagger trying to get to the heart of the shadowy organization that gave them their powers. Because that is their, like, origin. That's how they got their powers. They would have been mutants. Yeah, the idea with Cloak and Dagger is they would have been mutants anyway. But then they got, like, injected with, like, these weird street drugs that, like, fucked them up and affected their mutant abilities. Anyway, I'm positive that's what the Cloak and Dagger show is. It's going to be them, like, investigating the, again, mysterious organization that gave them their powers and finding about others. And that's just so boring to me by now. I've seen it 1,000 times. And there was no need to do it with Jessica Jones. After such a good first season.
It seems like filler, right? I mean,
yeah. Especially considering it doesn't even give you like a character. Like Jessica Jones season 2 has like no Marvel characters. Like at least like the others are trying. Iron Fist, besides, of course, having him oppose Davos, which I think is one of the weirdest castings. I have no idea why they made that little guy Davos. Why is Davos this little shrimp with a British accent? I don't know. Seems really weird. I mean, he's a good actor and he's a good martial artist, which is part of the role, but he's so small. He's so tiny. He's like my size, maybe smaller. I'm used to Davos in the comics, like, towering over Dany and being much bigger. Like, they're supposed to form a contrast that Davos is bigger and more physically imposing than Dany. In this, he's like a little shrimp. But anyway, I was going to say, besides that, though, they also, I won't give it away, but they have a character, actually a Daredevil character, that they brought on and put in. Not, and I don't mean a Daredevil, I don't mean from the show, I mean from the comics. I mean a character that's usually a Daredevil character was put in season 2 of Iron Fist, and it works pretty well. I like it. But Jessica Jones has no characters. It's just, I don't know, here's some organization and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's anyway. But, as I said, as somebody that's, like, a comic fan, I'm used to being beaten down and seeing them make movies and shows that are not meant for me at all. That are based on the things I like, but they're meant for people that have never looked at them or given a shit about them. So even when they do really little things that are like Call Out to the Comics, it makes me super happy. And there's a few of them, like in Daredevil and Iron Fist in particular. Iron Fist season 2 has some really great moments from various comic runs, including Daredevil itself, that made me really happy. They were just little things, so I was like, someone's paying attention, someone cares. And I know it's lost on the main audience, but I don't care about the main audience.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem. It has to play for that main audience.
Yeah, but they're doing a better job with it for some of these shows and stuff. Because for the most part, I think the Marvel Netflix shows are really good. Like, better than I could have. I'm still floored by Daredevil. I cannot overstate how I felt watching the first one, Daredevil season 1. I was just like, I had no idea you could do something this well on TV. I never would have believed it, ever. But I know some people, I don't know. I even heard people, like, criticizing Charlie Cox. I don't know. I think Charlie Cox is fucking perfect. He's exactly how I pictured Matt Murdock. Exactly how he looks and sounds. Exactly. So that's just perfect for me. That's how I've always pictured him. I never knew Charlie Cox either. I've never seen him in, I think he was on Boardwalk. I'd never seen him before. He was just some guy who came out of nowhere and looked and sounded exactly the way I'd always pictured Matt Murdock. So it worked out perfectly for me.
Is he British?
Anyway, if he is, he does a really good job of hiding it. But I mean, seriously, his look and voice are pretty much exactly the way I always pictured it. Like, he's right up there with fucking Kevin Conroy voicing Batman for me. And Kevin Conroy, it's only voice. It's not physical. With him, it's the whole thing. So, super happy about that. On a few different tangents there, but comics.
Born in London.
Comics and slashers and such. Oh yeah, jolly old London.
I was trying to see who he played on Boardwalk Empire.
I'm pretty sure that's what I heard.
Yeah.
On that. I never saw any of that show, but
that's a great show.
Was it? That's cool. Yeah, I like the setup. It sounds interesting. And it's cool. It's like the first time ever what's-his-name's in a starring role.
Steve Buscemi?
Yeah. All those years of work he put in as like a character actor. Just some supporting guy. And then finally gets to be like the guy. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to hate on the guy, but he looks like a ghoul.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like a... Oh, man.
I know. But, as we've said before, we've had this conversation before about how, like, character actors often have, like, a unique look, which is not attractive, and he's right up there with this. And it's almost impossible to find, like, their female equivalent. And it shows, again, the bias in the industry, right? Super good female actor. Well, why can't she be a character actor? What the fuck is a female character actor, We only have, like, attractive female actors, regardless of the role they're playing. We don't do the character actor thing, and yet that's a whole niche for, guys that don't have leading man looks. That's a whole niche for them if they're good enough actors. Somebody like Steve Buscemi. Sure, he wasn't making millions and millions of dollars, but he was always getting steady work, and people were recognizing his talent. But it's so much harder for a woman in that position. Like, she's a really good actor. It's like, I can't look at her.
Name a female character actor. Are there any?
some become that when they get older, maybe, but not like young. Like you could maybe say like now, like Kathy Bates is kind of a character actor, but like that only became achievable once she hit a certain age.
But isn't that just kind of like Meryl Streep? You know, like Meryl Streep has been able to stay, you know, the same level because she was never really attractive beforehand.
No,
So it's not like you're
she
like,
wasn't.
man, she really lost it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Meryl Streep's in a unique position, and it's a good position for her because people, I think, to a point, overrate her a bit because she's like the actress. Oh, she's a treasure; she can do anything. And I don't really know if I buy that. What's funny is the movie I just got from the library is Sophie's Choice. I'm going to watch that in the next couple of days. Never seen it.
Oh, really? That's good.
Everything's Sophie's Choice. Yeah. So anyway, I got that at the library. But anyway, Meryl Streep's in an interesting place. Like she's not ugly or anything, but you're right. She never had like the bombshell attractive look. So she's sort of in an in-between place that really worked for her because she didn't have looks that were going to put people off. People weren't going to be like, yeah, like they can be with women, which is again, not right because they don't do that with guys. But she also had the chops that people paid attention, so she could get really good roles. So she's not a character actor really because she's gets leading roles.
Well, that's the problem. You're either the lead or you're the mom. You know.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is.
So I mean, I guess you could say for like women that are always in the mom roles, they could be female character actors. But again, that's not really giving them much credit because they're not challenging, interesting roles. With like male character actors, they get lots of really interesting roles. Like somebody like maybe one of the ultimate ones is Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the odd leading role too. But I mean, a lot of the time he's just sort of a supporting guy doing the character thing. And Gary Oldman's like a chameleon. Like he can play almost anything in any movie. He's all over the board. You do like an image search of his roles. They all look so physically different. And he just gets right into them because he's such a good actor. I know there are women that can do that too, but you just don't see that because of the bias that exists in the industry. And it's not even just that; it's on camera. Period. I remember the other day I was watching some Sportsnet show talking about hockey, and they're like, "Now we're going to our correspondent in Edmonton or whatever." And it's this fat, bloated guy with like his eyeballs are like bulging out. Like he's not just fat; like he's really weird looking. His eyeballs are bulging out, and he's like in a suit that's too tight for him, and he's talking. And it's the same thing. Like if he was a woman, he'd never get on camera because on Sportsnet they do have women, but they're all quite attractive.
Yeah,
and they're all like under like 45. Sure. Whereas like some of these guys could be super old or whatever, and women just don't get those roles or parts either, like in media either. Yeah, so it's a tough thing for that.
Now I know I'm pretty, but I'm not as pretty as a couple of titties.
Because I mean, like it's good. Like Walter Cronkite was great at his job, and he deserved to keep it. And people just accepted that he was just this craggy looking guy, and he kept his job for 100 years. He was 1,000,000 years old doing the job. He didn't age out. But I mean, if it was a woman with the same ability, if she even got in, she would age out in 5 seconds.
Well, look at the ones that are still doing it. Like, look at the older women doing it. Like, they've been butchered by plastic surgeons.
Oh yeah, and you can't blame them. They're just trying to stay in the game.
I know.
They don't want to lose their job.
I know. It really is a what do you call that? It's a different world for each.
Mm-hmm.
So,
in some ways, things have come along. Equality's getting there, but we're far away for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like audience just won't accept that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Harrison Ford is like 80 years old, sexiest man alive, but you wouldn't catch a female over 40 being anywhere near, on any kind of a list,
To a little bit more now, but you're right. They're not going to get the top or anything like that. I mean, and I think even women admit that like men just mostly age better in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate. I mean, it's not in every case, but I mean, and it's the same thing too. Like men, as you get older, even if you get less physically attractive, you get more distinguished, and a lot of younger women are into that. You'll get like some by 20. I've been on dating sites for a lot of years, and I'll see like ones that like when I'm like 25, 30, they don't give a shit about me. They want some older, distinguished guy because he'll have money or experience, and that's what they're into. And I'm like, fuck this guy. Now it's starting to work to my advantage, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm getting more distinguished. I don't have any more money or anything like that, but I'm more distinguished, ladies. If any 20-year-old, I'm not supposed to. I'm not supposed to.
That should be the first line of your description. Distinguished.
Mature, distinguished, established. Yeah.
Looking for BBW.
With daddy issues. Anyway, we can circle back and finish off, I suppose. So yeah, as I said, this maybe was a little bit of a different pick for the whole Asian horror thing, but I thought it was interesting for that reason, because it stands out. It's a bit softer. It's a bit more of a drama. It's a bit more emotional. And I just appreciate all those components. I think they work really well. So it's not a movie I'm not necessarily going to remember for big scares or being super creepy, but all that's done well enough. And it does still, as a point pointed out, it has the woman licking and stuff. There's some really still creepy stuff going on there. The man in the elevator, and some of the stuff's just so abrupt, like when she's trying to learn calligraphy from the old guy, and some woman just is like, "Get out of my chair!" Like you're pretty surprised by that. So it definitely has its moments. But yeah, I like how it stands out from the other ones, because a lot of the other Asian ones, they're going more for like a shock thing, which I like. I mean, it's fine, but I like how this one forges a different path. I think part of that, again, it has to do with censorship in the Chinese film industry, but they use it to their advantage. They say, okay, we'll go into we can't do this or that. We'll go in a different direction. We'll go more emotional. And I think it really pays off. It's a really rewarding movie from that thing. She's definitely a protagonist I really like. She's up there as one of my favorites, probably, Mun. And her journey is very interesting, and it is scary, and she has to go through a lot, and it is very sad. A lot of sad stuff happens, and she's a witness to it. And as I said, I think the movie makes some great points about how people deal with sadness and loss and adjusting to changes in their lives, whether it's physical or it is emotional and stuff. And I think it's all very interesting, and it's all done very tightly. It's not even a 2-hour film. I think it's like about an hour and 40 minutes, maybe something like that. Not a long watch by any stretch, and it moves pretty well. But yeah, it looks so lo-fi. At least the version I keep seeing, it looks lo-fi. Even the subtitles didn't look good. They were kind of messed up. Like I could read them, but they didn't look clear. So maybe I'll have to look in to see if there's a way to get a Blu-ray of it or something to make it look. Yeah, even on Shudder, the version they play does not look good.
Yeah,
it's not even full widescreen. It's a little bit. You notice pixelation, but maybe if I saw it on a bigger screen, I would have. I was just watching it on the laptop, so possibly if it was on a bigger screen, I would have seen pixelation.
Yeah, it's one that I remembered quite well, or I remembered liking quite well.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I forgot most things about it, but I remembered that I liked it. I remembered that much. And these years later, revisiting, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. It's not. I think it's just the subtlety. I think is what I wasn't expecting. Because it's, I guess, something I've come to expect from a lot of these films is really extreme, like ghost stuff,
jump
scares, stuff like that. So it was just, I guess, it kind of caught me off guard with the lack of a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's a good film, solid story. The actors do a great job.
Yeah, I really like her. I've seen her in a couple other things. So there's a couple movies. It's a weird title, and I don't think they're related, even though there's a sequel. The first one's called Golden Chicken, and then there's Golden Chicken 2. She's in Golden Chicken 2. They're interesting Chinese dramas. In Golden Chicken, it's basically something like this man is like it's late at night, and he wants to go to an ATM. It's one of those ATMs that's like inside the building, inside the glass part. And I can't remember what he gets. He wakes up. Well, he basically gets stranded in there. Like the doors get locked, and he's stuck in there with like this middle-aged woman. And she's like, I don't know if she still is, but she's like at 50 or something like that. She's at least a former prostitute, and basically it's just her to pass the time, telling him her life story and flashback about how she became a prostitute and all this stuff. And it's a drama, but it's also like really quirky and weird and stuff. And Golden Chicken 2, I don't think the story is related. but it's a similar type of thing. It's another sort of like quirky story. Anyway, she's in that, although I can't remember what character she played. But what else did I see her in? I saw her in something newer. Did I see the drummer? What's the drummer?
She was in Recycle, another Pang Brothers movie.
Yeah, I assume she was in several.
Yeah.
As I said, she wound up marrying one of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she dated one guy for 7 years and married him in 2010. So Recycle, that's 2006. So yeah, that's that. That's also horror.
I've seen that too. I don't remember it either.
I'd like to see that. No, I mean I've seen very little Hong Kong horror, but this is the one I always think about. But yeah, she's also had some pop albums that she did when she was younger. She doesn't do that now, but which is kind of par for the course with a lot of these.
That's what I was going to say.
A lot of these Asian actresses, they're usually pop stars and that. Oh yeah, speaking of that, so Chow Yun-fat, of course, before becoming a big movie I can't remember if he was in a pop group, but he was at least a big soap star. He was really in the early '80s. He was a big soap star. He was like the sexiest man on television and stuff for a while and stuff like that before he broke into movies. And I don't know if he was in a pop group or not, but there's some other guys they were in pop groups when they were younger and stuff. But anyway, so this is something that's interesting where I think about like some of these international people that we think about less in the West. I mean, eventually he did come over here to make although I don't know if he was at really many big American films. I mean, big-ish, but anyway, so I was reading an article the other day about him, about how he's, I don't know if he's retired from acting, but now he's decided to donate all. Do you know how much money he has? Like, can you even ballpark how much money he has?
In U.S.?
Yeah.
He's very wealthy. I do know that.
Yeah, he has over $700 million.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have gone that high. Wow.
He has a fortune of something like $711 million.
From
I
what?
mean, even for an actor, that is incredible. There are very few actors that are up that high. Yeah, and anyway, he's going to give it all away. Apparently, he's a very frugal guy that doesn't really spend money on stuff anyway. Like, he gets, like, cheap clothes. So he's over the next, like, years or so is going to be giving it all away. But, I mean...
Wow.
Like Brad Pitt, $11 million. I don't think.
No, I wouldn't think so. Because he probably makes, what, say 20, maybe 20 a movie? I mean, probably 30 on a good day, but...
Yeah, and I mean, he hasn't always made 20.
Right, exactly. Depending on what it is, he may not make that now.
And I know he's made money off endorsements. I mean, that's how it's big for a lot of them. Like, he did some shitty, like, cologne or perfume commercial, I remember. And I'm sure they gave him buckets of money for that because that's how it works. But still, I don't think he's up in that thing. But yeah, so it really so I think some people, and even I kind of wasn't like aware of like how big like some of these stars are when they're international stars.
Well, I was trying to, where would all that come from? Like endorsements, you think?
At least some of it's endorsements, sure.
Because, I mean, yeah, I know he's a big film star, but I mean, like Crouching Tiger is like the last big thing I can think of that he was in, and that was almost 20 years ago.
But here's the thing. Again, he's still big in China, and being big in China is massive.
Right, but I mean, being
their
big, but I guess he's getting residuals, I guess.
I mean, probably, and also again, he is, and again, like I said, he is a frugal guy. So unlike Brad Pitt, he's not buying fucking Caribbean islands and exotic children and all this shit, or castles in Scotland like Nicolas Cage. He's not doing that. But I mean, it's weird because Andy Lau's net worth is only like 80 million. And I always would have thought he and Chow Yun-fat were kind of equal in popularity in China. But it just shows the difference because Andy Lau is certainly not really recognized outside of China that much, whereas Chow Yun-fat is. So, that kind of blows my mind that he's like almost 10 times wealthier than Andy Lau. Like, holy fuck. I mean, Jet Li has a fortune of about 200 million. And he's an international star. And yet, again, Chow Yun-fat leaves him in his dust. It's crazy. Anyway.
In 2014, he made 170 million. Wow. I'm sorry, that's Hong Kong. 21.9 million.
Oh, okay.
US.
Pretty good haul.
Yeah, God. I'm just wondering where it's coming from.
I don't know, but that means if it is residuals, that means if he gives it away, he'll still have plenty coming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure he's set for the future, regardless of what he does.
I mean, most of his big film roles. Okay.
Never mind. Yeah, I know what you mean. Sorry, I was looking at something.
I'll say most of his big film roles were in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And early 90s, but I don't know. Okay, he wrote a book.
Maybe he invested?
Yeah.
Some of these people, they invest and it really works.
So he probably made like 20 million for everyone. Oh, go ahead.
US 7. Now I read 711. Now on Wikipedia it says 714 million. He's the second highest earning actor in Hong Kong. There's somebody's ahead of him? What the fuck? But yeah. But I think that just shows, like, even I did, and I know more than I think I underestimate like a Hong Kong. Again, he's not just a Hong Kong actor; he's an intern. Still, when people say name some movie stars over here, like Chow Yun-fat's not going to get named. Like, people know him, but they're not going to name him.
I wouldn't think people know him. Like, we know him.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I guess. Well, I mean, people know him. I guess. Not even by name. It'd be like, oh, well, he was in this and this.
That
and they'd
guy,
be like, oh, okay. He was the Chinese guy in this. And they'd be like, oh, okay. But it'd be like, yeah, I saw him in Bulletproof Monk. That's a piece of shit with John William Scott. He has $714 million. Like, what?
And he was like barely even in that movie.
He could buy like 20 Sean William Scotts.
Oh, at least.
And what's funny is, like, a lot of the movies he did over here were flops, like Anna and the King. That was a big fucking flop.
I would say most of the films he did were flops.
Like, I like The Replacement Killers, but nobody cares about that movie. It was no big hit.
The Corruptor also. That was the two big ones I remember. See, he wrote a book. Maybe the book made like $500 million.
It can happen. I mean, I guess. Again, maybe just because it wasn't on the bookshelves over here, maybe it was flying off the shelves in China with their crazy population.
Okay, he's been in over 121 films and 24 television series. So
yeah, so I mean, just quantity adds up.
Yeah,
but still, again, like Andy Lau is also super well known and super prolific, and Andy Lau has like 1/10 of that. So that's crazy. But anyway, good on him. He's going to give away like 99% of his money.
He's doing something I'm not aware of, so good for him. I'm not.
Anyway, we can wrap up. I don't know. Maybe we'll do since it put me in the mood. I mean, maybe I don't know. What do you think? I was thinking maybe we could just do a Cairo Pulse next week. Unless you want to put that off and do something more special before Halloween. Yeah, thinking there's anything appropriate for the day before Halloween.
That sounds fine. You said you haven't seen Shudder before?
No, I haven't seen the remake. I wouldn't mind doing Shudder because just like The Eye, I remember I like it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I've seen
So
Cairo quite a few times. I know it pretty well. I think I'd rather do Shutter if that's okay
okay,
with you.
yeah, I'll try to track down Shutter.
If you could find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch Cairo anyway because I like it. But yeah, I'll try to track down Shutter. So, at least as of right now, we'll say that we're doing Shutter. If that changes, we will announce it on Twitter there. But as of this moment, we're saying yeah, we'll try to do Shutter next week for our pre-Halloween show. That would be pretty cool. And as we said, there were plenty of we always wanted to do some Asian horror, so now we're into it, so we might as well do a couple.
Sure.
So that's cool. But yeah, just reiterate and probably repeat shit I already said. But yeah, I always like this film. I like how it sort of stands out as unique for its emotional component, for its depth, how it really is. You know, it has its scares and its creepiness and stuff, but it's really about sort of evoking feelings on loss and death and tragedy and coping and all that stuff. And I think it does a really good job of all those things. I mean, yeah, the movie can be a disaster if it doesn't do those things well, but does it really well. Good writing, and of course, Angelica Lee, very strong performance as the lead. So yeah, it's a movie I like a lot and would recommend to people, especially if you're somebody that's like maybe seen a lot of the Asian horror, but you haven't seen this movie, because it's a lot of those, even though I like them, they kind of have a sameness to them. This is outside of that. I mean, sure, it has some of those conventions, it has some of those elements, but because of the tone and the core of the movie, the emotional core, it does stand out as something quite different. And I mean, if you saw the terrible remake, don't go by that at all, because this movie is much better than that. I'm sure most people would expect that anyway. That's usually how these things work out.
Yeah.
Although not always, because again, I think The Ring is a super good remake. In fact, I think The Ring is better than Ringu. So it can happen, so you never know. But yeah, I really like The Eye, and I'm certainly interested in seeing at least the first sequel, because most people say that's solid, and I know you like it. So hopefully I'll be able to track that down in the next few days too, because I'm certainly in the mood to see that. I've gone so long without watching any Chinese films, but it's time to break through that barrier, I guess. Rip that Band-Aid off. Yeah, so anything else, or I guess we're done?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, we thank you very much for being with us. And as we get closer to Halloween, excitement mounts and stuff. And I know, yeah, you're going to watch the Halloween film soon, maybe even tomorrow. And I guess on the Sausage Factory, they'll be talking about that. I know everyone's going to be sad that I won't be there to comment. But I like the movie. Just so you know, I have some issues with it, but overall, I like the movie, and I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be bad exactly. I just thought, okay, it might be really just forgettable and average. It's better than that. It's better. It's not forgettable and average. It's better. I'm not trying to raise expectations and say it's amazing. I'm not a orc giving it 5 stars saying, oh, it's amazing. They fucking did it. No, but they pulled it off quite nicely in a lot of ways. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. So anyway, little teaser on that. So yeah, and I'll be interested to see what you think about it.
Cool.
So that'll do it for this week. That was The Eye from the Pang Brothers. And next week, tentatively, it will be Shudder. If not that, for some reason, it'll probably still be Asian horror, unless something really weird, maybe occurs to us out of the blue that we think is really appropriate for the day before Halloween. That could happen, so maybe. But yeah, as I've said a billion times, we'll release that information as it occurs to us. So thanks a lot, guys. That is Jay. I'm Cole. And have a good one. And we will see you in a week's time on Devil's Night.
Thanks, guys.